and probably some for the Titans. But Adam, welcome in. D Mace, welcome in. How you guys doing?
I'm doing good. I'm good.
Celebrated
we got Adam here.
We got a full team today.
Yeah.
Celebrated my son's 3rd birthday yesterday.
Oh, happy birthday,
Arlo.
The big 3.
Arlo growing up so fast.
What is he driving now?
His little Tyke's car around the backyard. But no, he does like to, when the car is parked, try to sit in the front seat and press all the buttons. But not of driving age yet, fortunately. But
I mean, that makes him a normal kid, right? You
Yeah,
gotta hit all the buttons when you get in that
Absolutely.
front seat.
yes, but
And on your phone, if you're able to grab your dad's phone, you start punching all the buttons. Found
that
out.
is true. He hasn't made any awkward phone calls yet on accident, but had a great day celebrating my son's birthday yesterday. My wife took the day off from work. My parents were in town, so we had a nice Monday celebrating my son's 3rd birthday. And as I was getting in the car, driving home from spending the day with my parents, I heard the breaking news while listening to Stillman and Company that the Tennessee Titans traded Malik Willis to the Green Bay Packers for a 2025 7th round draft pick. So the Malik Willis era, unfortunately, comes to an end. We'll remember.
Was it an era?
Well,
it was a preseason era.
It was
three
something.
preseasons.
It
Like
was
most snaps taken in a preseason for a 3-year span, I think.
It was certainly something.
Yes.
But Malik Willis now, I don't think the trade has been made official yet, but it has been widely reported that Malik Willis, now a member of the Green Bay Packers, where he is expected to back up Jordan Love. So I look forward to the reception that Malik Willis receives when the Green Bay Packers are here in week 3, I want to say. I'm sure he'll receive a rousing ovation.
They probably do a
tribute.
video.
It'll
tribute
just
to
say
him.
"Scene missing." Welcome back, Malik Willis. Scene missing. That's what it will be. But
Man.
yes, Malik Willis now a member of the Green Bay Packers for a 2025 7th round draft pick. Are you surprised that the Titans were able to get something? I mean, they were able to. I was going to say something of value. I mean, your mileage may vary on how valuable a 7th round draft pick is, but the fact that the Titans were able to get something for Malik Willis, did that surprise you?
It didn't surprise me because he had a good camp. He showed development within his offense. He showed that he could pick up an offense very quickly and to run an offense. We talked yesterday about the operations of things on Sunday. I wasn't too worried about the numbers and who did what and how they did it. I was worried about the operations of the offense and how the quarterback ran the offense. And did he try to, push things, or did he take what the defense pretty much gave him? And I think when saying all that, Malik Willis did exactly what the coaches wanted him to do. He didn't try to force anything. He looked a lot more comfortable in the pocket. Now, he still has a lot to learn, obviously, but he looked as if he was developing within their system, and they were able to, get something for him, albeit it's only a 7th round pick. But had he not shown the development, I don't think they would have got anything for him. They would have had to cut him if they weren't going to keep him. So I think it is a testament to Malik Willis and how he's developed within this program over the last 4 or 5 months. Brian Callahan has been head coach.
I think it does say something that he's not a complete throwaway that you can get a draft pick. A 7th round pick, for example, was used to get Nick Folk. That was a valuable asset to use. The guy you pick in the 7th round, is a roll of the dice. Some years it's a guy that won't even make your team. And then other times you might hit something. Logan Harrell right now, not Logan, but Jalen Harrell looks like he is going to be a guy that has a chance to play quite a bit this year as a rookie 7th round pick. Cortland Finnegan, I think, was a 7th round pick. So you never know. But I do think, can we agree that they were going to cut Malik Willis? They were, if they were willing to do this, they were going to cut him and not keep him on the 53. At least they were definitely contemplating it if they weren't 100% sure.
I think
that
it's
they were
safe
gonna
to.
cut him.
I think it's safe to assume that.
So they didn't value him as a guy that was going to be a backup for them anytime soon, right? Because if we talked about it yesterday with Mason Rudolph, and there was just a good back and forth between Chase and Jared last hour about Mason Rudolph, right? Whatever you think of Mason Rudolph, he's an inexpensive 20-something backup quarterback. He is a backup, and they could keep him beyond this year. If they thought that Willis could be the backup, not this year, but next year, it would have been easily done to let Rudolph walk and then have Malik Willis one more year under his belt to be your backup next year for Levis. So I think they weighed all of that, and they said they've seen enough of Willis. And what we don't know is what is out there that they might like as a potential replacement for Willis, because you need a third quarterback in the mix. I think it would be on the practice squad, but you need somebody in the fold.
We do have some breaking Titans news.
Wait, do we have special music?
Do we have the special music, Frazier?
I think we feel like we do.
I think we need this.
This deserves music?
It deserves music.
You've seen the news.
It deserves music.
It's big enough.
We're waiting.
Do it deserve music?
I think it does.
Now the buildup is really moving up. Now we really need to.
Everybody's listening now.
All right, we're building the anticipation here.
And we do apologize to you, Dr. Crane, for that. But
we did throw.
This is what we do. This is what we do.
Slow on the draw today for the clip.
There we go.
There we go.
Breaking news from Adam Schefter just now. The Titans are releasing 2021 first-round pick Caleb Farley, per source.
Okay.
The Titans are releasing Caleb Farley, according to Adam Schefter, of course, of ESPN. So maybe it wasn't worth the music, but we kept Nick Frazier on his toes. But the Titans are releasing Caleb Farley, according to Adam Schefter.
I think we all knew.
Yeah.
Like he's been a non-story other than
the fact that he's been a first-round pick that did not pan out.
Right. I think we all have sort of written him off as a guy that was going to
that could make it a contribution.
Yeah, I think you're just rooting for him as a person to maybe salvage something and be a guy that sticks on a roster. I don't know what happens to him next, but I know he's been through a lot. That's what everybody says. But in saying that, and of course he missed the last couple of weeks of camp with an injury. It's just the same series of things. As a player, I wasn't holding my breath whether he was going to make it or not.
No, the likelihood of him making the team was slim to none. He's been behind the 8 ball since he got here. He came in as an injured player, was injured in college, never seemed to get on track. And then when he did get on the field, he ended up getting injured again. I do feel bad for the kid because he's been through a lot off the field. He's been through a lot with his injuries. And you just hate to see a guy sort of, because guys go through this, and these are guys that have been, since they've been 5, 6, 7 years old, been playing football, and their dream has just been to get in the National Football League and play at this level and be significant within this sport. And then they go through all of that, and then you have to cut them because of injury. They just could never get on the field. And then when he did get on the field, it didn't look great. And I think all of it, I don't think we ever truly saw the real Caleb Farley, whoever that is.
Right. But the problem was
he could never get on the field.
He had issues when they drafted him. He was an injury.
And that's why this franchise is where they're at now.
Right. Yeah,
because you look
at complete zeros. It's one thing if, let's just take another example. Who was the linebacker out of Alabama that they took in the first round?
Larry Landry, but
in recent years?
Rashad
Evans.
Yeah, Rashad Evans. Yeah.
Okay. Rashad Evans, not the greatest player of all time, and they didn't sign him to a second contract. But at least he played and
at least he was able to stay on the field.
Yeah, and gave them not zero, right? What is hard to overcome. Like it's like in class in the semester, and hey, I think we've all been there.
Yeah,
right?
I know I've been there.
It's one thing to get a 62 on a test, and then over the course of the semester,
you work your way.
You try to work through it. When you get a 0, that is harder to overcome. And that's why the teacher is probably saying, hey, Willie, you don't want to take a 0, okay?
Yeah.
make it up and I'll give you a 50 or I'll give you a 70. But it's hard to make up 2 zeros. 2 zeros. Isaiah Wilson and Caleb Ford, your first round pick. That is an inheritance that Rand Carthon and the front office now have that they are trying to overcome. That's why they are working at such a deficit in players 24 and under, which we've documented a lot.
And we'll see what happens with Treylon Burks. Not that Treylon Burks is going to be cut by the Titans, but another first-round pick that so far has not panned out for the Titans.
Yeah, teetering.
Yes,
not a zero, but I'm not sure we can give him much of.
If we're doing that pass-fail thing that I did in college, he's right on the edge.
He's right on the border. It could go either way.
Right. So,
and then let's also mention Willis. Right, Willis is in this group.
Yeah.
In retrospect, at the time, I thought it was a worthy risk picking him in the third round with, hey, you're looking for the next guy. Maybe he's the guy, but they used the third round pick and essentially you don't get a hit on that. So this is all part of 3 drafts that have given them, a failing grade. There's no way around it.
Now, I did send this to Nick, so hopefully he has it handy. Doing some research last night, I stumbled upon a scouting report of Malik Willis from Mina Kimes of ESPN during the 2022 NFL Draft Combine. And this is not to pick on Mina Kimes, who I think is as sharp as a tack, but this just this exemplifies the peril of prospect analysis. This was Mina Kimes talking about Malik Willis during the 2022 NFL Draft Combine.
I think he is the most interesting player in the draft. And when I watch him, I still have questions. Like, I don't know if he can cut down on the sack rate and the turnovers or run a pro-style offense, frankly. But I do know this. Watching his tape, there are more moments where I say words I can't say on cable television than any other quarterback, maybe even player in this class. I mean, his traits are unreal. The rushing ability, I just said to you guys where we started, instantly I would put him in the top 3 in the NFL with his running style. The arm talents, the off-platform throws, the deep ball. There are going to be teams that look at him and have visions, maybe wrong visions, of Josh Allen and Justin Herbert. Todd, you talked about his ceiling. I think his ceiling is outer space, and someone is going to want to board that rocket ship, even if it goes horribly wrong.
His ceiling is outer space.
That's beyond the roof. That's past the roof.
That is beyond the ceiling is the roof. It's outer space. And someone took a chance on it. The Titans did. It didn't work out.
In the third round.
In the third round, yes. I remember Malik Willis being talked about as a first-round talent.
And I think she was talking.
Draft.
I think Mina, and I think anybody like Mina or anybody else, you will find a clip or two like that where it's cringeworthy 2 or 3 years later.
That has not aged well.
That has not aged well.
The rocket ship has not gone to the right planet on that. Yeah, it's now heading to Green Bay.
The ceiling is the roof.
The rocket ship didn't even get off the planet. What are you talking? It didn't even get 10,000 feet in the air, Willie.
I do want to point this out from Dane Brugler. There were 9 quarterbacks drafted in the 2022 NFL draft. Only the final 2, both 7th rounders, are still with the team that drafted them. Kenny Pickett, traded. Desmond Ridder, traded. Malik Willis, traded. Matt Corral, cut. Bailey Zappi, cut today, reportedly by the New England Patriots. Sam Howell, traded. The only 2 that are left on their teams, Skylar Thompson, who's now the backup in Miami, and Brock Purdy, who was, of course, the last pick in the draft. So, not a great 2022 quarterback class.
It also is an illustration, and this is not to make fun of Mina Kimes at all, because it does remind us how much talking there is about a draft before the draft. Yeah, and you are, the more you talk, and the more you realize this is such an inexact science, you are going to be wrong more than you're going to be right. And so everybody, I don't care what analyst you're talking about, is going to have a clip like that.
Oh, of course. I'm sure there are a bunch of analysts that are, if they heard, what they were saying about that group of quarterbacks, they probably would cringe. Like, I may not want to, give my opinion on quarterbacks anymore. But that's what happens when the whole draft, because the draft is built on one player and one position only. The quarterback position. When you have, just like this past season and last season, there were a plethora of quarterbacks coming out. People talked about the draft. Why? Because of Caleb Williams. Last year, C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young and Will Levis and whoever else, Bo Nix, guys like that. Well, Bo Nix came out this season, this year, but it was guys like that that were talking. They drove the draft. That year, when Malik Willis and all those guys came out, they were pulling at straws to try to find a first round quarterback. So any and every attribute that they could put on it that would agree with what they were saying, they were doing it. But Mia Combs is right. He has attributes. He has certain talent.
But when we saw
but he
Malik
can't
Willis,
put it
we
all
never
together.
saw those attributes
Yeah, that's
that
what
she
I'm
was
saying.
talking about. Never saw those.
You saw it in college, but it didn't translate.
Yeah.
So when you don't have that bona fide number one quarterback, you start talking yourself into guys that are really
The
fifth
quarterbacks
round
move up.
guys.
Yes.
Exactly. But you talk them into the second round or the first round. We've seen this year after year when there's either not a market for quarterbacks or the market for quarterbacks that year in the draft isn't good. They talk themselves into believing that quarterback right there, who is nothing more than an 8th round pick if they had 8 rounds, they talk themselves into putting them in a first or second round. And unfortunately for Malik Willis, fortunately for him, because he went from a guy that probably shouldn't have got drafted in the 3rd round based upon how he looks now, to a guy that people talked up and then they end up taking a chance on him in the 3rd round.
But you know what's interesting, D-Mace? One point you've always made about Malik is, hey, before you completely write him off, because this is a guy that got thrown to the wolves,
Yes.
right? When he was not ready to play, that was a huge mistake that they made 2 years ago, is making him the backup quarterback because the other option was Logan Woodside. They tried to go super cheap, and they tried to take advantage and roll the dice because Tannehill had stayed healthy, right? That was something that up until 2 years ago, Tannehill had been very durable. So they thought they could get by with Willis as the backup, and he had to play, and it burned them terribly. And that was unfair to Malik Willis.
Absolutely.
And then he also had to play last year. But what does that do? At least he has some experience that he takes to Green Bay, and now all he's got to do is be better than Sean Clifford and Michael Pratt, which is a point you've made. Hey, if you think Willis is bad, there's a lot of bad backup quarterbacks in the league.
Now, if I recall correctly, didn't Sean Clifford beat out Will Levis in college? And that's why
Sean Clifford was from Penn State.
And Levis
yes.
transferred as a result. Do I have this right?
That is correct. That is correct.
The circle of life here, guys. the NFL. It's like this.
How quick can Nick pull up "Circle of Life" from the line?
I mean, I could sing it, but nobody wants to hear that. But as we said, the news so far, not a shocking development, but the first major cut by the Titans. According to Adam Schefter, the Titans have released Caleb Farley, who started 2 games as a member of the Tennessee Titans. Appeared in 12 games, started 2. No games last season.
And those starts, I don't think he remained in there the whole game. Like they didn't go well.
No. There we go.
That's my boy, Nick. That's my boy, Blue.
Is that Elton John?
Yes.
Okay, I just have to make sure. Yeah. It is the circle of life. It doesn't matter if it's college or professional. Everybody is connected in some form or fashion. So Malik Willis goes to Green Bay, where he will presumably overtake Sean Clifford to be the Packers' backup quarterback after Sean Clifford beat out Will Levis at Penn State, which sent Will Levis to Kentucky, if I have that right.
That's right.
It's the circle of life.
Someday these quarterback shuffles in college, the way they transfer now, there's going to be some serious scripts, circles of life. You can just call it the quarterback circle of life.
Right, we could. But
we got something here.
As we discussed, now that the Titans have traded Malik Willis, and we'll get into this more in depth as well with Tim Hasselbeck, who will join us in the next segment. The Titans do not have a 3rd quarterback on their roster. Now, I want to read this because this came out yesterday. I feel like there might be some confusion about the 3rd quarterback rules in the NFL. And this story came out yesterday. NFLPA vetoes emergency 3rd quarterback rule. Teams were informed that the Players Association vetoed the revised emergency 3rd quarterback rule that would have allowed teams to elevate a bona fide quarterback from the practice squad an unlimited number of times. The rule reverts to the 2023 parameters, which state that an emergency third quarterback must be on the 53-man roster or as one of 2 standard elevations per week. An elevated quarterback would have to be active for the game rather than the emergency role. A player can be activated 3 times per season. So I think that's important context
Big
as we
time.
discuss the potential addition of another quarterback for the Titans.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, I mean, they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. Essentially, that's what the league
But why?
wanted.
Why does the
And
league do this though? I mean, this is so stupid.
But if you were, I mean, if I was an owner, I would want it too, because then I don't have to pay him. You know, I could just send him down and bring him up when I need
the
him.
owners are really
So it's-
hurting for money for what the third quarterback is going to make.
Hey,
Give me
I
a
get it.
break.
Listen, Willie, I understand it as a former player rep. I like that the NFLPA vetoed that, but I'm just saying this is what they're thinking. Like, I don't want to have to make him a permanent fixture on a 53-man roster, and I don't want to have to pay him the money that I would to be an active player. So what I can do is put him on a practice squad. Hopefully he goes through waivers, put him on a practice squad, and every week just bring him up. Just bring him up.
But
up
that's a
and down, up
nuance,
and
though,
down.
that makes it a little more difficult to navigate that, right? It'd be one thing to just always be able to elevate your quarterback without any penalty every
can't do
week
it
from
now.
the practice squad. But now you're saying there's a limited time that you
Yes.
could do that.
There is a limited, so if I have this correctly, the NFL, meaning the owners, wanted the ability to elevate a quarterback off the practice squad or an emergency quarterback an unlimited number of times per season. That's what the owners wanted.
Yes, that's what they should
The
be able to do.
NFLPA viewed the rule as a sort of legal stashing.
Wait a minute, teammates, you need to talk
That's
to your
basically
people.
what did I just say? Stash a
It's the-
player,
it's
bring
the
him up and
players-
down.
It's the players of.
That's why that's why I'm glad the NFLPA was like, no, we know what y'all trying to do. No, either you're gonna have him on the roster or you're not. So
To reiterate, the rule is an emergency third quarterback must be on the 53-man roster as one or of 2 standard elevations per week. An elevated quarterback would have to be active for the game rather than in the emergency role. A player can be activated 3 times per season. So that's
so
the rule.
lame.
Yeah,
that's the rule. But we will see what happens. We'll see which quarterbacks are cut around the league. I did see one notable name cut. Bailey Zappi has been reportedly
Western
cut.
Kentucky's finest.
Yes, Nick Frazier pointed that out to me today. Bailey Zappi has been cut reportedly by the New England Patriots. We saw Mike White over the weekend cut by
Another Western Kentucky guy.
Really?
Yep.
What's up with these Hilltoppers not being able to keep a job?
They're
got your
good
number
products,
threes.
all right? They're good products in the NFL. They just,
Wasn't Logan Woodside Western Kentucky as well?
I believe, UAB, but Conference USA.
Man, these Western Kentucky
Where is
quarterbacks,
Logan
man,
Woodside?
they can't hold down a job.
Yeah.
I swear Logan Woodside went to Western Kentucky. If I pulled that correctly, I'm
I'll
going to
look
pat
for
myself on the back. But there will be options, including an
Toledo.
Okay, Toledo.
Yeah. The
Western
Rockets.
Kentucky, Toledo, tomato. That's what I say.
Not too far of a drive.
Yes. 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. The news of the day so far as it relates to the Titans, according to Adam Schefter, the Titans are releasing Caleb Farley. Not a surprise, but according to Schefter, that's the direction the Titans are going in. And of course, yesterday, Malik Willis traded from the Titans to the Green Bay Packers for a 2025 7th-round draft pick. We'll get into all of that next with our friend Tim Hasselbeck, Adam Vingan, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Willie and D Mace, 1025, 1063 The Game. Adam Vingan, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, and on the line with us, our friend Tim Hasselbeck, as he joins us every week. Tim, we were talking about to open the show the Titans trade of Malik Willis to the Green Bay Packers for a 2025 seventh round draft pick. What were your thoughts on the trade? And we played a clip in the previous segment from Mina Kimes at ESPN, who you know well, talking about Malik Willis at the 2022 NFL Draft Combine, saying his ceiling is outer space. Now, it hasn't happened that way yet, but what do you see as the next chapter for Malik Willis as he leaves Tennessee and heads to Green Bay?
Yeah, I think he finds himself in a similar situation to the one that he was in Tennessee, to be honest. In that there's somebody else that's the starter. And so he finds himself as a developmental prospect, but just with a new team. And sometimes it's good to have a fresh set of eyes, fresh set of coaches, and personnel department that want to see you develop. And so, maybe that's helpful, but I think the scenario is similar. And the challenge ends up being he's going to go to Green Bay, and there's, most likely not really an opportunity for him to kind of show what he can do to that coaching staff until next preseason. So, I also think this. I think it was good by the Titans that they got something for him. I think he could have easily been in a situation where there was no compensation coming back and you just had to release him. So I think it's a good job of the Titans of getting value. And then I think, from the other, kind of side of it of like who the Titans have, look, they obviously feel comfortable with Will Levis. I think they feel comfortable with the backup situation with Mason Rudolph. And, they, kind of, probably found themselves in a situation of like, look, we're good with the guys that we have. What can we get in return? And I think Malik Willis kind of dictated it based on, how he played. I guess I would say the lack of consistency with how he played.
Do you think the Titans should prioritize finding a third quarterback to take advantage of the emergency quarterback rules? Mm-hmm. Or do you believe, as you said, that at this moment, Levis and Rudolph is enough for this team?
Yeah, I think that I'm sure they will look around because, there are some teams that are going to let quarterbacks go that, they maybe have a grade on that, is higher than maybe the team that's letting them go. So it won't surprise me to see somebody added to the roster, somebody added to the practice squad, or every week, a list of 4 or 5 guys that are coming through the facility to work out. Like that would be typical. And I could easily see that happening. And I think it just makes sense, for that to happen. I mean, think about it from Green Bay's perspective, like on Malik Willis, like Sean Clifford, like hasn't been a disappointment for them, but at the same time, they probably want to look around and say, all right, there's a guy who's got way better physical tools than Sean Clifford. The question is, can he be a better quarterback than him?
We'll talk with Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst and head coach of the Ensworth Tigers. First and foremost, I want to say congratulations to you on the game ball. I saw you got the game ball and the victory this weekend, Tim, you and the coaching staff. So I want to say congratulations to the Ensworth Tigers and you for your first victory.
Hey, I appreciate that. D-Max, you had a lot of game balls. Where can I get that one painted up?
And listen, they had them painted up for me before I got them. So
I'm saying, like you had so many painted up. You can at least find out.
You got a guy? You got to have a guy, right?
And we got to find a guy.
Paint-up guy.
Hold on, Tim. All that damn money over there, and you can't find a guy?
You know what? That's a great point.
A lot of tuition money coming in there.
Right? You know what? There's a student in art class right now that I'm going to go find. They paint up the game ball. But I appreciate it. Honestly, that was really fun and it was really cool. Appreciate. I actually I don't know where my head was at. There was a lot going on. I did not expect the game ball, but was certainly happy to get one.
Well, congratulations to you and the coaching staff on your first victory together for the 2024 season. Now, what did you think of the game this weekend? I looked at it and I told the guys this. I wasn't so much worried about, the numbers that they put up as far as passing and running. I wanted to see more so the operation of Will Levis. Did he take what the defense gave him? Give him? Was he methodically moving that ball down the field? Did he get guys in and out the huddle quickly? Did he read the hots when they were there? What did he do to help advance this team down the field? And from what I saw, he did a damn good job. He did the boring things, and he kept doing the boring things, and he didn't get tired of doing the boring things because that's what he's been preaching. What did you see out there?
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think the way you just characterized it was great. Like, I remember having a coach one time was like, don't get bored, doing this. You know what I mean? Just because it was something we worked on early on. Like, don't get bored. Like, if we're calling this play again, like we maybe are doing it because we're good at it, and I know you can find a completion. Like, don't get bored, if, we keep sending you in with the same run check and you keep, getting to the same run. And so I do think there's an element of that. Like, sometimes it's like, look, we can make football super complicated, and, we don't always need to do that. So I thought that was good. I would also say this, and I think this matters a lot. I thought the pass protection was good, and, we always hear people say like, oh, hey, the quarterback's best friend is a tight end, or quarterback's best friend is a run game. And some of those things can be true, but like most everybody that makes it to the level that we're talking about Will Levis being in, which is not just making it to the pros, but being a guy that an organization feels like they can build around as a starting quarterback. Most of the time, if you protect them, like, they're going to deliver. Like, that's just how it works. Usually where things start getting sideways is, when a guy is under pressure and he's playing with people in his lap and that type of thing. I thought he did everything well that you outlined. And then I think on top of that, you also saw the guys up front do a good job protecting him.
Now, do you like the way Brian Callahan, called? He called the plays. He mixed things up. Even though he went to the screen, I felt a little bit too much. I'm like, save some of that for the season. But but in my eyes, he did sort of mix up things as far as run pass, going deep, or taking an intermediate route. How did you see as far as what did you think of his play calling?
Yeah, I think he's going to do an awesome job calling plays. And I think the fact it's funny you say, Bill Callahan. Like, I also think that, like, he's going to be able to rely and trust, on his father in the run game and his experience. And in terms of saving stuff, it's interesting because, look, they're not, I don't know, you and I have both been a part of teams that was like, hey, this is really watered down and we're not going to get to certain things. But there's a long Rolodex of what they can get to offensively. And there's also, because, they're not just like mixing and matching stuff together in terms of designing what they want their playbook to look like. Like, what they are doing is time-tested, tried and true, proven to work at this level. And there's always a response, that you have in the toolbox offensively to what you're getting defensively. Like, it's already been run through the filter. Does that make sense? Like, I think that's the thing, like, that's different than like, oh, hey, Cliff Kingsbury is the coach in Arizona. It's like, no, this is different. Like, and it's because the experience of what these guys are doing, and not to say they don't have their own personal wrinkles on the stuff, but like, what you are getting is the run game that had been run through the filter of offensive line coaches like Alex Gibbs or head coaches like Gary Kubiak and Kyle Shanahan and like that type of stuff. Like, that's what this is. And I think that's why it looks the way that it looks.
Tim Hasselbeck is with us from ESPN. We're talking football with him. So, Tim, I just think about how all this could play out. You've got the Packers, who are a pretty high-profile team in general every year because of their sort of national following, their uniqueness. And you've got Malik Willis, who could be in a big primetime game with a team that has high expectations playing in big games. But it just shows you where the Packers were with their backup situation as compared to Mason Rudolph. So I guess my question for you is where do you see Rudolph in the tiers of backup quarterbacks? Because clearly the Titans like Rudolph and they think it was really never a debate between him and Willis.
I think he's one of the best backups in the league. I think I said this to you guys a couple of weeks ago. I really think he is. I think he's a fringe starter. Maybe even depending on where you went, a starting quarterback. Like I think we'll see some quarterback play this year that I would sit there and say, like, I think Mason Rudolph would play better. Look, I'll give you an example. I think he'd be better for the Giants as their starting quarterback than Daniel Jones.
Really? You would take him over Jones?
I would. And listen, I think it's one of the reasons why the Giants, signed Drew Lock, because they probably looked at Drew Lock as one of the guys that was probably like Mason Rudolph, fringe starter, maybe play better at times than the guy that they have as their starter. And you might need to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the Titans have Mason Rudolph on a better deal than the Giants have on Drew Lock. I believe both of them are on one-year deals, and I think that Mason Rudolph is less expensive. So I think he's one of the best backups in the league. I think they're getting him for a very, very, very fair price. And I think probably part of it was, and now listen, I don't know the history. I don't know, Mason's agent or anything like that, but probably part of it is, hey, look, you can be, a snap away in Tennessee, with, a young, unproven quarterback, for this price, or you could go somewhere else where the path to getting back on the field, maybe isn't as good. I think Mason Rudolph has gotten a bit of a unfair shake because of how things started. Played super early on not a great team. Myles Garrett incident. They draft a quarterback. You kind of get pushed aside when maybe you shouldn't have been. I think he's a good football player, deserves to be playing at this level.
Last thing for you, the Athletic always has, I think, a really compelling group of tiers. They get, and Mike Sando does it. Mike was on our morning show today. He gets all kinds of perspectives around the league, and he has a tier system. They have Will Levis in tier 4, which I don't think stuns everybody. The votes are pretty mixed, about half, almost half and half, a few more in tier 4 than tier 3. But the one quote that jumped out to me is an unnamed executive or whatever said, I see him as potentially tier 3, but that's about it. I think the Titans fans would like to think that he could get up into tier 2, but what do you see as his ceiling?
Yeah, I think because of his physical ability, that I would never. I don't think because of his physical ability you could ever put, a ceiling on him, a physical ceiling on him. And I get it that Mike Sando's certainly not going to write an article where he's putting him into the Patrick Mahomes realm, especially getting feedback from other people. But I think because he's so physically gifted and then being in the right system, I think, and I don't know, I didn't read Sando's piece this year, but who are some of the guys in tier 2 that we're talking about? Right?
It was tough to get into tier 1. This year they only had Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and Josh Allen in tier
so fine.
1.
So put those guys in, and then that next tier. Who are we talking about?
We're talking Lamar Jackson, who I think should be tier 1. It's borderline.
Yep.
Matthew Stafford, Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers, C.J. Stroud, Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy, Kirk Cousins, Jordan Love. It's a big tier 2.
Look, it is a big tier 2. We start talking about, Dak Prescott, what Jordan or Justin Herbert has achieved, where Jared Goff is. And I think all those guys are great players. But I don't think I would ever put an environment at this point to say, because here's the thing, he's already more physically talented than probably half of the guys in that tier 2 group. The outlier in that tier 2 group is, the physical limitations that somebody like Brock Purdy has. So, to me, when if you're a Titans fan, you should be like, yeah, man, we hope he can be a tier 2 quarterback for sure. And I think that it's fair to have the optimism of that. The thing that is going to, keep him, from getting into that, conversation of quarterback really just ends up being the consistency and the decision making. Because physically, he's so talented that, I mean, you think about, like, he's more talented than Dak Prescott. He's more talented than Kirk Cousins or Brock Purdy. He just is, or Jared Goff. He is. And so, you know, it really comes down to the consistency in the decision making, managing the operation, all of that, you know, would be what tells his story.
Tim Hasselbeck, thank you for joining us as always.
You got it. See you guys. Have a great week.
Good stuff, Teb.
Yep, you too.
Tim Hasselbeck with us.
We're going to get
he
that
is.
paint guy. We're going to find that
Yeah,
paint
we're
guy
gonna
for the
find
game
him.
balls.
I liked his idea of going to the art department. I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you get it for cheap, matter of
Yeah.
fact. Yeah. So
We're still waiting on our popsicles. I mean,
Are they?
come on, man.
we
We're
gotta see how
waiting
old-
for, where to a paint guy?
Yeah, I
Come
don't know.
what is this about popsicles? Did I miss something about popsicles?
Yeah, Tim promises popsicles.
Oh,
Well,
come on, Tim.
you gotta
Hold
give-
up
you
your
got
end of the
popsicle-
bargain.
The popsicle. So
I'll go paint a football for free.
all that damn money up at that school, and they can't find somebody to paint his ball. Come on now.
We do have an interesting quarterback release in the NFL,
Okay.
according to Ian Rappaport.
Well, let's talk about that in the next segment. Who are the guys
Okay.
that would be out there?
We will mention we will add a new one to the list as reported just now, and we'll react to what else Tim had to say. Coming up next, Adam Vingan, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Another quarterback release.
Uh,
Does it give you an option to choose the camera?
it's right here.
Yeah, that's this camera. Does it give you?
Oh yeah, we're trying to use that camera. What is
Yeah.
the option? I don't even have my glasses. You see it? Because I don't have my glasses. Man. Is it that?
We'll figure it out later.
Okay, it might be this.
I'll buy some time for Willie here.
No, you can go ahead. We can. Willie jump in.
Ready music. Tune into 94.9 The Fan today. Nashville Sounds take on Charlotte Pre-game at 5:20, first pitch at 5:35, with coverage also available on 94.9 The Fan app and at 94.9thefan.com. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks, Family Leisure, 5 Points Roofing, and Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Adam Vingan, I should be able to say my own last name. Adam Vingan, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, here with you. We were just talking to Tim Hasselbeck, and I mentioned that we have a couple of notable quarterback cuts. According to Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, the Arizona Cardinals have released Desmond Ridder. According to Ian Rappaport, Desmond Ridder, formerly the starter of the Atlanta Falcons, is now a member. Oh, actually, he was a member of the Arizona Cardinals, now released. So Desmond Ridder, now available, according to Ian Rappaport, also released among quarterbacks from Adam Schefter, the pride of Battleground Academy, C.J. Beathard, released by the Jacksonville Jaguars. So C.J. Beathard, released by the Jaguars. Desmond Ridder, released by the Cardinals. So a couple of quarterbacks available if the Titans want to go quarterback shopping, third quarterback shopping. They now have some options. So add Desmond Ridder and C.J. Beathard. Mike White, cut by the Dolphins on Sunday. Bailey Zappi, reportedly cut by the Patriots today. So there are notable backup quarterbacks available, but there is one name that I haven't mentioned. I think I saw Jared mention him today. Mike Herndon of PaulKaharski.com mentioned him as well. I believe it was yesterday, as a quarterback that could be of interest to the Titans if he shakes loose. And this is who I want to talk to you guys about. Brandon Allen of the San Francisco 49ers, who I believe started the game here, right?
Yes.
The 49ers, the preseason game here against the Titans a couple of weeks ago. According to Mike Herndon, if Brandon Allen does not make the 53 in San Francisco, he's definitely a quarterback to watch for the Titans practice squad. He has a history with Brian Callahan, played in Cincinnati, and has at least some experience at the NFL level. Also had a nice preseason. So Mike Herndon and Jared both mentioned Brandon Allen currently with the Niners. If he loses the backup battle to Josh Dobbs in San Francisco, perhaps Brandon Allen, who has familiarity with Brian Callahan, could be that third quarterback for the Tennessee Titans.
I would have. This is my thought as you hear these names pop up. How many teams? Because this plays into the Malik Willis strategy here. They saw an opportunity to get a draft pick for a guy they thought was obviously replaceable. And when you think about these names, there's a lot of people that have played even more than Malik Willis that they're not all going to end up on somebody's roster. So how many teams are going to, at the end of the day, carry 53 or carry 3 on the 53? And how many are not? Jared has pointed out a couple of times that last year, more teams than not, more teams that didn't, carried only 2. I think it was 19-13 teams that carried 2 as opposed to 3. So if you know that on the street at any given time, there's going to be the Desmond Ridders, a couple of these teams I'm sure will snap up somebody and make them the number 2. But after a while, you're still going to see a lot of free talent sitting there. So that might be your answer, unless it's a specific case like Herndon points out here of a guy that already knows the offense and you feel like, okay, he's good. Let's keep him on the practice squad. He would be the guy you could elevate. But until there's an injury with 1 or 2, you probably wouldn't elevate. You wait and keep that guy on the practice squad as long as you can.
Unless there's a guy that, I believe they think could come in here and develop into, a backup quarterback, possibly even this season. I think then they go after that third quarterback. And I think they too put that third quarterback, whoever they get, they put him on the practice squad, because obviously if they don't trade for a guy and they get a guy in release, depending on where they're at in the pecking order, it's a guy that more than likely, if he goes to somebody else's team, he's going to be on the practice squad anyway. So you get your third quarterback and whoever it may be, and you just throw him on the practice squad if you want to. I'm not sure they wanted to do that with Malik Willis, put him on the practice squad for another year. I think, in their bid, they traded him because they didn't want to, probably waste a roster spot on him per se, because they didn't feel They probably felt that, you know what, he's not in our future moving forward, so we'll send him somewhere else. But I still do believe they need another quarterback, but they could just essentially get that quarterback, whoever it is, and just throw him on the practice squad.
I think that the quarterback development system in the league is the worst of any sport. In terms of developing a particular position in a particular sport, the quarterback development system is awful. And so I think that is what is in play right now. And everybody's trying to figure out how to best work the 53-man roster with the rule instead of just making it a 54th spot where every team's got to carry 3. That would make it a lot easier to get a guy as your 3 and develop him. Now you got to play this game of, do I keep him on the practice squad? Do I keep him as a 3? Because the bottom line is, for your season this year, if your number 3 has to play more than a piece of 2 or 3 games, your season's probably not going very well, especially with where the Titans are in the scheme of things.
Ben on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, asks, is there anybody better than Mason Rudolph, I presume available, who has been cut? Then we could trade Rudolph too. And if nobody wants Rudolph, then we are set at third quarterback. So Desmond Ridder has started 13 games last season for the Atlanta Falcons. I wouldn't say they were good. He had a 6-7 record as a starter for the Falcons, but having watched a lot of NFC South football, it's not good. Desmond Ridder, I would not say that Desmond Ridder is better than Mason Rudolph. He might have more experience starting, but I wouldn't say he's better. It's
a unique situation. It's kind of how Rudolph became available to the Titans, right? D-Mace, they decided to get the Steelers went in a completely different direction. Exactly. Like get everybody out of here and let's bring in Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, and let's see if we're better off with that. The Falcons did the same thing. They doubled down on spending a ridiculous amount of money on Kirk Cousins with the first-round pick of Michael Penix. So you just knew that, like, they don't have enough resources to carry Desmond Ridder. So they've written him off early. Somebody, I think, would snap him up. But the question is, will they make him a number 2? Or is he destined to be practice squad this early in his career after being a first-round pick?
Derek and I, during the break, were playing, based on what Tim Hasselbeck said in the previous segment about Mason Rudolph being one of the top backup quarterbacks in the NFL. I was throwing backup quarterbacks at Derek. Who would you rather have, this player or Mason Rudolph? And it was I would say it's about 50-50, the guys I threw at you, Derek. I threw Justin Fields. I said Justin Fields or Mason Rudolph. Jameis Winston or Mason Rudolph. Sam Howell or Mason Rudolph. Jake Browning or Mason Rudolph. I mean, Mason Rudolph, by the way, I think he has started 13 games in the NFL in his career, which is as many as Desmond Ridder started last season. So someone might take a chance on Desmond Ridder. He had some good moments last season. The problem is they were mixed in with some pretty bad football. But someone I'm certain will take a chance on Desmond Ridder.
Here's a good question. If the Packers knew yesterday what they know today, that Desmond Ridder would be out there for free as opposed to trading a 7th-round pick from Malik Willis, who do you think they would choose? Are they sitting there going, man, I didn't realize that Ridder was going to be out there?
My gut says Ridder, just because he has
starting
experience.
No, yeah. I think they made the move that they wanted to originally make.
It says something about Willis.
Yeah, I think I mean, listen, they still can go out and bring Ridder in if they want to. He's on waiver, so if they felt they needed him or liked him, they can still bring him in. I think they didn't want Malik Willis. If they wanted Ridder, they could have approached. He's with who? Atlanta.
Ridder was with Atlanta. He was released by Arizona.
Exactly. Released by Arizona. So they would have went to Arizona and gave the same package for Ridder that they did for Malik Willis. But I think it
also says something about Ridder that in Arizona they didn't see him any differently as at Atlanta.
Exactly. So I'm looking at it from that standpoint that, hey, listen, we could have gave you the same package we gave Tennessee, but obviously we didn't like Ridder as a quarterback. We like the upside, whatever upside they may think they have with Willis, they like it better. So
the trade, by the way, between the Falcons and the Cardinals back in March, it was Desmond Ridder for receiver Rondale Moore. That was the trade. Ridder for Rondale Moore.
And Rondale Moore is not nothing. He was a great college wide receiver. That was a fairly high pick.
Oklahoma?
Right? Purdue, I think, right?
You're asking
Was
the
it
wrong
Purdue
guy.
or Oklahoma? Is it Rodale? Rondale
Moore
Rondale.
attended Purdue.
Yeah.
There we
He
go.
attended
He
Purdue.
had a couple of really good games against Vanderbilt, which I don't like remembering.
So
that's why you remember him.
Yeah.
So Desmond
Bad
Ritter
memories.
didn't make it through training camp. His first
Bad
didn't,
memories.
didn't make it through his first training camp with the Arizona Cardinals, reportedly released by the Cardinals. Today is cut down day in the NFL. 53-man rosters are due by 3 p.m. Central, where we will continue to monitor social media to see what the Titans are doing. We'll talk about some of those question marks that are left as the Titans whittle their roster down to 53 men by 3 p.m. today. Adam Vingan, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Willie and D Mace, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Adam Vingan, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Nick Frazier, here with you on Tuesday afternoon. We are roughly 3 hours from the cutoff for teams to complete their 53-man rosters around the NFL. 3 p.m. Central is the deadline. We will continue to monitor the news.
Tick.
Yes, we will continue to monitor the news. So far, only one Titans cut that we have seen Caleb Farley, unsurprisingly, but unfortunately for Caleb Farley, as Derek said, has gone through a lot, both professionally and personally, has been cut by the Tennessee Titans. So that's the only cut that I have seen so far. In addition to the cuts that were made on Monday, 9 players were waived by the Titans on Monday. Linebacker JoJo Doman, wide receiver Trayshawn Harrison, offensive tackle Brian Dooley, defensive back Tay Gowan, linebacker Michael Jones, linebacker Thomas Rush, wide receiver Sam Schnee, tight end Steven Stylianos, and punter Ty Zentner. Those were 9 players waived by the Titans yesterday. So you can add Caleb Farley to that list. So we have some cuts. We're waiting for them. But as we wait for those cuts, I asked this question to you, Derek and Willie. Which position should we keep our eye on? Of the cuts that are still to come, is there a specific position that intrigues you as to what the Titans might do as we wait for the cut down deadline at 3 p.m. Central?
I'm looking at the receiver position because all those guys, frankly, all those guys have balled out at one point during camp. You saw this past weekend what a few of the receivers were able to do. The kid that caught a touchdown from Malik Willis, I forget his name. Number 80.
Oliver?
80.
Oh, Bryce Oliver.
Yeah,
Bryce
Oliver. He balled out in the last game. You had Jackson ball out. Mason Kinsey been doing this thing. I think the only guy that really hasn't shown up as much is is Kyle Phillips. That's probably the one guy that really hadn't shown up. So I'm watching that position, and I think there could possibly be a trade in there. And I mentioned that to you guys yesterday in regards to Treylon Burks. I love Treylon Burks. I hope he can, stake his claim as a player for this franchise. But I am not going to be naive to think that they wouldn't trade him if somebody put something on the table that was worth making a move, because once D-Hop comes back, I thought that with D-Hop gone, Treylon was going to get an opportunity to take that step forward, catch some passes. We see what he really looks like. He did extremely well in practice. In the game, it didn't show up as much. Maybe the opportunities were not there. I think he ended up catching like 2 passes in 2 games. So I looked at it from the standpoint of, if he's going to really take that step, he has to show somehow, some way that he's ready. I'm not saying that he isn't, but I think there is a possibility with D-Hop coming back, them reassessing where they are from a wide receiver standpoint. And if D-Hop is fully healthy, I think somebody may come by and offer them something that they probably can't refuse, and they send Treylon on his way. Not because they want to, but because whatever they're getting back in return is something they can't pass up.
The question I have is, we saw a trade last week involving a first-round wide receiver who was taken 2 spots. Yes, 2 spots ahead of Treylon Burks in the draft, Jahan Dotson. The Washington Commanders traded Jahan Dotson and a 5th-round pick to the Eagles for a 3rd-round pick and 2 7ths. So Jahan
Pretty
Dotson,
significant trade.
Yeah, Jahan Dotson, like Treylon Burks, 1st-round receiver, as I said, chosen 2 spots ahead of Treylon Burks in their draft. Dotson in the 5th for a 3rd and 2 7ths. Do you think there is a team out there who views Jahan? So Jahan Dotson is going to be the 3rd receiver in Philadelphia, right? Behind A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Do you think there is a team out there that could value Treylon Burks the same way the Eagles value Jahan Dotson and trade multiple picks for Treylon Burks before the start of the season?
Wow.
Is there a team? Ooh.
I would be surprised. I have not really looked at Dotson's production over the last couple of years. And so I would probably need to reference that a little bit more before I compared what Dotson is now value-wise as opposed to Burks. But I would say that I'm still in the exploratory phase in my mind if I'm Carthon, and Callahan. I want to see Burks in this system for a year. Unless somebody really hits me with value like that. Essentially, you're right, you're getting a third. You're getting an extra third round pick, and you're giving up on a guy you picked in the first round. And of course, Rand Carthon was not the guy that made the pick. So it's probably a little easier. It's probably not a pick that he's emotionally tied to. But I still feel like Burks has done enough in the preseason, and he has made it to day one healthy, which hasn't happened before, right? He's going to start, and he might even be your starting guy if D-Hop is not ready to go. So I'd like to take a look at that, really, unless there is an offer that I can't refuse. I'd be surprised if that kind of offers out there.
So Jahan Dotson in 2 seasons with the Commanders, 84 receptions for 1,041 yards and 11 touchdowns. He had 7 receiving touchdowns in his rookie season, 4 in his sophomore season. So 11 career receiving touchdowns in 2 seasons, 84 receptions, 1,041 yards.
So
clearly
significantly more
productive.
Yeah. Which tells you that Burks would not have that value probably on paper.
No, but it's funny that you mentioned that, because I shared this article with you guys yesterday. Bill Barnwell at ESPN.com had a story about NFL trade candidates, players who could change teams before the deadline. And he mentioned Treylon Burks as one of those players. He also mentioned Caleb Farley, who, as we know, has been cut. So this is part of what Barnwell wrote about Treylon Burks. Quote, as we saw with Dotson, though, Burks should have some trade value given his salary. With the Titans having already paid most of his rookie deal out via a signing bonus, he is on the books for only about $4.3 million combined over the next 2 seasons. That's not much by NFL standards. The acquiring team would even have the leverage of a 5th-year option if he did break out in a larger role. Should teams expect a superstar? Of course not. Could he be more if he ends up with better quarterback play or in a more pass-friendly scheme? I suspect the team will be willing to find out for the right price. That was Barnwell yesterday on Treylon Burks.
I look at teams like the Jets. They really don't. They have no depth at their receiver position.
I don't even know who their second receiver is after Garrett Wilson.
Mike Williams.
Oh, Mike Williams.
Yeah,
Yep. But
I think it is.
I feel like he's held together with.
Yeah, he's always hurt.
Yes.
So you can't count on him to finish. Yeah, Mike Williams is the starter. They got Xavier Gibson, who they drafted, Alan Lazard, who hasn't shown up for them.
What about the Steelers?
The Steelers, they just cut Martavius Bryant.
I know there's been there have been plenty of rumors about the Steelers and Brandon Ayuk. Not comparing Burks and Ayuk. They're in a different class. But if that falls through, would the Steelers take a gamble on Treylon Burks?
I don't.
But for what? Like a 7th rounder? Or is that what
would have to be?
So if we all agree that Jahan Dotson who has been clearly more productive over the start of his career than Burks. Burks is not going to fetch as much as Dotson did.
Yeah.
So what do you think we're looking at as a legitimate return on a trade for Treylon Burks?
I would say
a 5th round pick.
A 5th at best.
Maybe conditional.
A conditional, maybe a 4th. It turns into a 4th. I can't see much. Teams will give up much to get him. I guess it's just, you not wanting to cut him. You wanting something. A 4th round pick, a 5th round pick is still a good pick because you could potentially package that with another pick and move up to a round that you want to be in. If you want to be in the 2nd round, then you can package picks together to try to move up within the 2nd round or move into the 2nd round. I look at teams like the Cardinals, Arizona. They don't. I mean, other than Marvin Harrison Jr., they don't have much of a receiving core there. You look at who else? The Bills. What did their receiving core looks like? I know they went out and got Keon Campbell, Coleman. They drafted him, and they have the kid out of Ohio State that's been in the league for 6-7 years, but their receiving core doesn't have any depth. So there are teams.
Are you referring to Curtis Samuel?
Yeah, Curtis Samuel.
Curtis Samuel.
There are teams out there that need a number 2 or number 3 wide receiver. It's if they're willing to give up the pick. Maybe it's a 4th, maybe it's a 5th. Are teams willing to give that up to get a Treylon Burks?
An interesting note here as it relates to something Titans adjacent from Rob Demofsky. who is the ESPN NFL Nation Packers reporter. So think of him as the Green Bay version of our friend Teron Davenport. The Packers are releasing both Sean Clifford and Michael Pratt. Sources
Releasing
confirmed.
both.
Releasing both Sean Clifford and Michael Pratt. We'll see if either returns in some capacity, perhaps on the practice squad if they clear waivers. But for now, it's Jordan Love and Malik Willis.
So Willis makes the 53. The other two, they are rolling the dice. They believe that it'll be easily. One guy's what, a 7th-round pick, rookie. I think that's a natural fit on a practice squad.
Mm-hmm.
And the other
I
guy
don't know
was a
what they'll
later
do
round
with
pick too.
Clifford. Yeah, I don't know what they'll do with him, but it's interesting for a team that's trying to win. And I think the Packers have a very good young team, high expectations. You got the Lions in that division, but people think they could win double-digit games, maybe more. They were only 9-8 last year. Let's not forget, right? They had to make a late run, and then they looked great in the playoffs and almost won in San Francisco. So expectations are high, and they went into the season with those two guys that they just cut as their backups. It's kind of surprising. Right
Yeah, it
there.
is. Now, what position are you two guys looking at? I said the receiver
Yeah.
position.
Linebacker
and
for me.
Burks.
Linebacker. And obviously, if you can find an offensive
Yeah,
lineman
you're gonna have to find a
that,
few
that
of them.
Bill Callahan likes, I'm sure he's scouring. They have a good waiver position, right? That they can use. But we talked about it yesterday in the wake of losing Chance Campbell for the year and given a couple other young guys, depth guys are banged up. I think a veteran inside linebacker could be a fit. Maybe there's a guy that Denard Wilson has come across in the past, or some guys on the coaching staff. I'd be keeping an eye out there, linebacker wise.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Linebacker. It sucks for Chance Campbell. Like, he had such a great preseason, and to lose your season in the preseason, really tough news for Chance Campbell. But I would agree with Willie. The linebacker position is one that I will be keeping my eye on over the next couple of hours.
Also, watch the defensive back room, who they cut, who they choose to keep, who they put on practice squad, because we discussed this yesterday with TD. Those guys that are backing up Awuzie and Snead and McQuarrie. Even I like Brownlee. I think he's going to be a player. He's just young right now. He's still trying to figure it out. But beside that, they don't have any depth on the back end. So to me, they're going to have to bring in guys that have played some snaps in this league, guys that are veteran guys, that if one of these guys go down, one of your starters go down, that you can, just easily place that guy in there. Will he be a Cheeto or Snead? No, but he has the experience that you need at that position, so you don't completely, lose whatever momentum you had, at the cornerback position. So that's another group to watch, is the cornerback position, because I don't think they have much depth. Beside Brownlee Jr., I don't think they have much depth.
Another quarterback released in the NFL. The Lions are releasing Nate Sudfeld.
Nate
Sudfeld out. Hendon Hooker has won the backup quarterback job.
That's
with the
Northwestern,
Detroit Lions.
right?
Sudfeld, that sounds right.
Northwestern.
It sounds right.
Man, this is a good quiz today of where did this guy go to college?
I just want to point out that although Logan Woodside, I don't think, went to Western Kentucky, he was offered by Western Kentucky.
Okay, so
partial count it. That I know more about Logan Woodside than I ever thought
Nate
I did.
Sudfeld is Indiana.
Okay.
Indiana?
And
Okay.
not
I was
Northwestern.
in the
In the
Big
right,
Ten.
you're
I was
yeah,
in the
Big
Big
Ten.
Ten.
In fact, if I remember correctly, did he not play? Would he have played the bowl game? Remember Indiana
Yes,
played?
I was in the right state too.
Yeah, you were close.
Yeah. Well,
No, close.
Yeah, I was close. Yeah,
Northwestern is outside of
Northwestern
Chicago.
is outside of Chicago. Yeah.
Yes. So close. I'll give you partial credit.
I'm
Just
not
like I'll
sure how
give
much
partial
credit
credit
for that.
Okay.
That's like Nick's system in our Take It to the Bank. Sometimes he gives points to you guys. I'm not sure how.
Y'all can't give me no points. I was close. I was in the same division.
No points.
The cities are not that far apart. I mean, wasn't that close?
D-Mace, I give you like
The
two or
colors
three
are
on that.
different.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
2 or 3 behind.
Purple and red. They're cousins. They're cousins. Purple and red. Cousins. 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We'll continue to monitor social media as the cuts roll in around the NFL. The deadline for 53-man rosters is 3 p.m. Central. So far, all we have seen in terms of notable Titans cuts: Caleb Farley, released by the Tennessee Titans, as reported by many people as I first saw it. from Adam Schefter. But as we continue monitoring the NFL, I want to get into the Yaroslav Askarov trade for a moment. Willie sent something over to me that I found to be very interesting from an analyst that has Predators ties as we discuss the fallout from the Yaroslav Askarov trade in an interesting article I read too about the aftermath of that trade. We'll get to that next. Adam Vingan, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Willie and D Mace, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Adam Vingan, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Nick Frazier here with you on a Tuesday afternoon as we continue to monitor social media as it relates to NFL cuts, Titans cuts. Anything we see, we will bring it to you. So far, the only cut we have seen as it relates to the Titans is Caleb Farley has been released as a member of the Tennessee Titans. But I wanted to take a quick Titans break to talk about the aftermath of the Yaroslav Askarov trade, because when we were in together late last week, we were talking about what potentially that trade package could look like. Then the trade comes down on Friday with Yaroslav Askarov becoming a member of the San Jose Sharks. So, Willie, you sent this to me from sportsnet.ca. Jason Bukala works as a prospect analyst for Sportsnet. He is also a former amateur scout for the Nashville Predators.
And I don't have the years off the top of my head, but it was a long time.
It was, I think it was like the early 2010s, I want to say like 2010, 2011. So Bukala has experience with the Predators organization as an amateur scout and now works as a prospect analyst and does work for Sportsnet. So he broke down the trade between the Predators and the Sharks, and Askarov was the headline. But he did mention a couple things about the trade as a whole that I found to be interesting. So there's a section at the bottom that says who won the trade, because that's the most important thing whenever we discuss a trade in any capacity. We have to immediately find out who won the trade. And it's not going to be clear who won this trade for a while. We need to see what happens.
Probably like 5 years
at least.
Right?
Now, if the Predators, now that they are armed with 3 first-round draft picks, if they turn that 3rd draft pick into a significant player, whether by trade, offer sheet, they draft someone, that adds to the trade grade. But if we're just looking at the prospects, if we're looking at the 2 focal points, Askarov and Edstrom, as you said, Willie, it's going to be a few years at least until we know. But this is what Bukala wrote, and I think it's worth discussing. So who won the trade? Both teams did well in this trade, but the risk definitely lies in the hands of the San Jose Sharks, according to Bukala. He also writes, starting NHL goalies are expensive to acquire, and Askarov hasn't established himself yet at this level. Having said that, I believe the Sharks have acquired their goalie of the future. Edstrom, in my opinion, has a bright NHL future ahead of him. He won't move the needle offensively every night, but he will contribute in a variety of ways. He also mentions the future first-round pick. But then he writes, it'll be interesting to see how this trade pans out over the next 3 or 4 years. There's a real chance Nashville comes out on top in the long run. So we heard Barry Trotz on with Jared following the trade last week. Today at The Athletic, Corey Pronman is releasing his pipeline rankings. The Predators, I believe, were number 17. And he had Edstrom ranked as the top prospect in the pipeline based on his criteria.
Which surprised me a little bit.
It did surprise me as well. But according to Corey Pronman, who's a prospect analyst for The Athletic, Edstrom is now, in terms of I would have to look at the criteria. Because, for example, Luke Evangelista is on his list. I think it has to do with age. I'll have to look at the parameters.
You have to be 22 or under, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are guys excelling at age 21, 22 that are on the list. So that's the distinction in this list,
yes,
as opposed to the players who haven't played in the NHL yet. Like
yes,
Evangelista and some of the guys who have played a full season are evaluated. But let me just ask you, Adam, you follow this, right? And we discussed it leading up. Based on what we thought the market might be for Askarov and the circumstances, did you think the Predators got decent or, good? How would you grade what they got back? Even though we're not going to know the results of this, because Edstrom is 19,
mm-hmm,
and the guy that they are going to use for this pick is right now a senior in high school, right? He can't even vote yet.
They may not even use the pick on a prospect.
Guy, right? So this is a long way off before you know what you've got. And Krona, I think, is a guy that they think could end up being an asset down the road. He's only 23. He's still young for a goalie, and he did get thrown to the Wolves last year.
He had bad NHL numbers, but he played
for an awful team. Which, by the way, is the team Askarov is going to. So we'll have to see how the Sharks try to navigate.
But now they have Macklin Celebrini. Now they have Will Smith. I thought the Sharks added some savvy veterans in the offseason, like Tyler Toffoli. So you would presume they will be better. I still expect the Sharks to be one of the worst teams in the NHL this season. But to answer your question, I thought it was good that the Predators recouped a first-round pick in this deal. I thought that was important. And Edstrom, by most accounts, is a good prospect. He was considered the top prospect in the Golden Knights' system when they made the Thomas Hertl trade with the Sharks. Though, to be fair, the Golden Knights' system isn't considered one of the best just because they have traded a ton of either first-round picks or players they've taken with those picks, like Cody Glass, for example. I think Nick Suzuki, who's now the captain of the Montreal Canadiens, was another one of those players that was it for Pacioretty?
Max Pacioretty.
Great. So they've traded a lot of their high-end prospects. So take that for what it's worth. But Edstrom is considered a good prospect. Now, is he the type of prospect that most people who know these sorts of things expect to be, a Connor Bedard, Macklin Celebrini type. Probably
Not a game changer.
but he sounds like a
the
guy who could
projection.
be an everyday player in your middle six, in your second or third line.
And a center who those are harder to find if he stays at center.
Right. So there's a lot to like about this deal. I mean, the fact that the Predators now have that many first round draft picks. And by the way, we talk about look, I was as hard on David Poile as most people when near the end of his time with the Predators. I just thought that there were a lot of moves that he made that I didn't agree with. But the move he made to trade Tanner Jeannot to the Tampa Bay Lightning on his way out the door was a masterclass of asset management. I mean, how many draft picks did they get? 5 for Jeannot, who's not even on the Lightning anymore. He was traded to the Kings in the offseason. They needed to get rid of him to make salary cap room. And they got a first round pick out of that.
They have the Lightning's first round pick this coming season.
Right. So a really, really savvy move by David Poile. So to have their, 3 first round draft picks now, I thought that was important that they got a first round draft pick. And look, Willie, you and I, we were talking about Kent Johnson last week. If they were going to trade him to the Blue Jackets, a top 10 pick who's pretty established in the NHL. Maybe we were thinking too big, but I thought that the Predators, all things considered, did well in these negotiations. And I saw Elliot Freeman put out his 32 Thoughts column the other day and mentioned the other teams that were sniffing around the Scarf. He mentioned the Canadiens. He mentioned the Devils. I think
Colorado was in there.
Yeah, they
mystified me. I don't know what Colorado really has to trade.
Right, but there were plenty of teams interested, and San Jose snapped them up. But there's an interesting story about a Scarf today that Willie, you and I, and Derek wanted to discuss by Alex Daugherty in the Tennessean.
Yeah, I saw this pop up, and I think it's a very good insight that I think, because look, I know, and I went on Joe and Robbie's show, and I said it many times on this show, I felt like if Askarov had bought in to the Predators' plan, and that is what the article is about today that Alex did, that is good. You've now got Mitch Korn back in the fold to go with already a great group of people who know about goaltending, right? Pekka Rinne is in the fold. Ben Vanderklok is an outstanding disciple, if you will, of Mitch Korn. He has done a great job with Rinne and Saros. Have the Predators ever had bad goaltending? Ever? No. I'll answer it quickly. No. And most years they've had outstanding goaltending. Okay? You've got this great plan that Barry Trotz outlined that they tried to sell Askarov on. Even with the commitment to UC Saros and the signing of Scott Wedgwood. They had a plan. I said all along, if Askarov bought into the plan, he could fit nicely if he were patient for the next couple of years and get better, which is the Predators' assessment. And you ask yourself, do the Predators know about goaltending? I think the answer is yes. Does Mitch Korn know about goaltending? Yes. That was their evaluation for the betterment of the franchise and for Askarov, that he's not ready. They tried to sell him on Mitch Korn, Pekka Rinne, Ben Vanderklok, taking your time. You're young. He didn't listen to any of them. That affected how quick they moved Askarov, right? I wanted them. I thought in a perfect world, the best way to go would be to continue to bring Askarov on at his own pace. When he's ready, be the backup, and then his trade value would even go up. And you could wait it out until the perfect phone call came in for the best deal. Do I think they got the best deal they potentially could have? No, they decided to just move on because Askarov decided not to listen to any of those guys, despite the credentials of that group that has got a time-tested, proven success track record of goaltending.
It's not about what they have as far as, the experience and the knowledge of that position. You named them off, Willie. It was this young kid. And again, when this trade initially came down and we talked about it, I said, I understand both sides. I understand Askarov side wanting to play and, thinking that, hey, listen, I am the top or the second top prospect as far as goalies in the AHL. I think who had a better prospect? Was it Detroit?
The Wild had
Detroit and the Wild each
Yeah.
have good guys.
Is it
Who, by the way,
Jesper Waldstedt, is
Yeah.
that the goalie for the Wild?
yeah, who basically are at the same stage of their career with
Yes.
the Skarov, and I don't think either one of them is going to play much in the NHL this year.
Mhm.
Why? Because goaltenders take longer. But Skarov doesn't want to hear that. He says he's ready right now. Okay, let's see what the Sharks do. They do have 2 NHL goalies under contract.
Yeah,
right now.
they do, but they're not very good.
No, but the
Mackenzie
Sharks, the
Blackwood
point is
and
the Sharks
Vitek
aren't going to be
Vanacek.
very good. If he wants to
Yes.
go out there, will the Sharks
Mhm.
put a Skarov in there 30, 35 times this year? Maybe. How's that going to go?
I wouldn't be surprised.
I think they have no choice but to play him and play him.
Yeah, they're
lot.
committed
Yeah,
now.
they committed to him. They know he didn't want to go back to Milwaukee, so they're committed. Barry just didn't want to deal with it. As much knowledge as they have in that building when it comes to goaltending, the young kid didn't want to hear it. He wanted to be in the NHL, and it wasn't the fact, I think, necessarily that he wanted to be in the NHL, because every player that's in Milwaukee strive to be in the NHL. If you don't, then why are you playing hockey? I think it's the way he went about it. They knew even if they brought him up after that, there was still going to be a problem. There was still going to be friction within the locker room, because he ultimately wants to be a starting goalie, and he was never going to get that chance, at least not within the first 3 or 4 years, unless UC just tank, which I could never see. The kid wasn't going to see as much time as he wanted to see. So you were, in a sense, you were forced to move him, but it may have been the best thing for the organization. And Barry has always said from day one, I love the players. I want to do right by them, but I need to do right by this organization first. First and foremost, that is my responsibility, the organization. So if that is indeed the case, as much talent as this kid has, if he's causing a stink, you gotta move him. And you just may not get what you exactly want, but I think they probably got close to it. But the big thing is they got rid of a malcontent. He's gone somewhere else. Hopefully he does well there, but they couldn't deal with it they couldn't deal with it as a franchise, considering where they believe they're headed. They got a team that can truly believe they can compete, not just for a playoff spot, but ultimately for a Stanley Cup. And they don't need the interruption or the friction from a guy that hadn't played in the NHL much. They don't need it. So what do? You just move him somewhere else where you feel he can sort of flourish in the fashion that he wants to.
In conjunction with that trade, the Sharks signed Askarov to a 2-year contract with I think a $2 million cap hit that takes effect next season.
Yeah, so they've got him for what, $925?
Yes, he's on his entry level deal. But this was something that was interesting to me. So this is from Sheng Peng, who's a reporter in San Jose. Mike Greer, the Sharks GM, says they've laid out expectations / plans to Askarov and his agent. Says he expects there to be no issue if it so happens that the Sharks want Askarov to report to the AHL to start the season.
Which is what I think they're going to do.
I
I would be very surprised if he is the opening night
backup
goal.
Yeah.
Well, because if he's opening night backup, that doesn't make any sense. He needs to play, which is what the Predators told him.
Right.
You need to play 60 games or so. We'll get you some games. This is what Alex's article, Alex Doherty from the Tennessean, lays out very well. Some quotes from Barry Trotz. We spent hours.
Mm-hmm.
We have a plan. We have one of the greatest goaltending developers of all time that is in your corner. We want you to get better. This is the best thing for you. I will bet you that the Sharks' plan is not that different this year than what the Predators' plan is. Are they going to throw him to the Wolves and get lit up? The Sharks have a bad team. They're rebuilding. They're super young. They're not going to be very good.
But you know what? You know what's different? His path.
That's
to becoming a starter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is why now all of a sudden he's going to decide he's going to behave now.
There wasn't a path for immediate
right. That's ultimately what it was. No question.
For him. There is a path.
Yes.
So you're right. He'll go down to Milwaukee, but he knows that they're going to bring me back up. He has a feeling in his mind, the path to get to where I want to go is easier in San Jose than it is in Nashville.
Right. He actually gets to play in the same
Exactly.
building because
I
the
was about to
Sharks
say, the Sharks,
AHL
yep.
team is called the Barracuda, and they play in the same.
They play
Shark
in the
Tank.
Shark Tank. There
Yeah.
have been many times where the
Well,
Predators
who
will
would
have
win, a shark or a barracuda? Which one?
I mean,
question.
it's like one shark versus 10 barracuda. It depends on what you're
A
talking
little
about.
talking
baby
about
shark.
numbers, yeah.
A little baby shark.
Yes,
Yeah.
but don't say baby shark around don't say baby shark around someone who has
Oh,
a
boy.
3-year-old child. But there have been plenty of times. There have been plenty of times where the Predators will have their morning skate at the Shark Tank,
Yeah.
and then that afternoon, the Barracuda will play an afternoon game, an AHL game, before the Predators play the Sharks in the evening.
I have seen times where we've been over there that the Predators will be in their locker room getting ready for the game, and the Barracuda players will be in the locker room right down the hall getting ready for their practice or game that's going on right
Right.
there.
Okay,
It's
can
a really
I ask y'all
odd setup.
something?
Yes,
Is it barracuda or barracudas?
Good question.
I
Is
feel
it?
like it's plural with
Is
an
it plural,
S.
the
I feel like
Barracudas?
it's plural with an S.
Well, because in the
Nick, help
WNBA,
us out here. Grammar.
in the WNBA,
Two Barracuda or two Barracudas?
I believe it's just Barracuda.
I'm
because in
gonna
the
find this out.
WNBA they just got singular names.
The plural of the word barracuda is indeed barracudas.
Okay, so there is an S. Okay.
so
actually,
are
Is
they
it's
that
the
a-
bar-
Webster? What is
That
that?
actually, according to Merriam-Webster, it could be both. It says barracuda or barracudas. So
Ooh,
I
it's
guess
an either or.
it's
Okay.
an either or situation. But that is something that works to Askarov's advantage. Even if he's in the American League, he's still playing in the same arena. He can still live in the same
Right.
apartment or house or whatever.
And as Derek pointed out, this is where now his attitude is going to be better because he doesn't have to cry and whine. He sees the pathway, and he's probably going to be a little more patient because he immediately becomes their number one prospect to
Right.
goalie. There's nothing standing in his way.
Yeah.
With all due respect to Mackenzie Blackwood and
Vanacek,
Vanacek.
Neither of
Yeah.
whom are the long-term answer. They're placeholders at best for the San Jose Sharks. 615-737-1025. If you have any thoughts about the return for the Yaroslav Askarov trade or anything of that nature, let us know. 615-737-1025. We'll continue to monitor cuts around the NFL. I just saw one that popped up. The Chiefs have cut Kadarius Toney. He was very much offside, and now he's gone. Kadarius Toney cut by the I was about to say New England Patriots. The Kansas City Chiefs will continue to monitor.
Talented guy.
Very talented.
Hasn't put it all together.
No, as with most people who get cut on this day. 615-737-1025. Adam Vingan, Willie Dunnick, Derek Mason, 1025-1063. The Game.
All right, listen up, everybody. It is time to tell you about Loan Pronto and their situation that they want you to know about right now. Mortgage rates are going down, and that means there's an opportunity for you to use their zero-cost rate reduction home loan. That means if you have a mortgage rate that is 6% or higher, you need to get rid of that and get a lower rate. That's going to lower your monthly payment immediately. So call Loan Pronto right now at 615-499-5780 and ask about the zero-cost rate reduction home loan. You can lock in a lower rate with no closing costs in a matter of days with almost no paperwork and usually no appraisal. Loan Pronto has recently locked in folks at 4.99% APR. So whether you got your loan last week, last month, or last year, it's time to call Loan Pronto and see if they can better your position. You can lock in that lower rate, and if you act now, you can even skip your next two house payments. So in the short term, you're going to get a big bump there. So call now. Loan Pronto can give you a rate quote in minutes. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781 on approved credit, NMLSconsumeraccess.org. Well, Adam's day's wrecked. That's going to be in his head the rest of the day.
Man.
I've watched a lot of youth baseball games where my son's playing and everybody's little brother and sister are off to the side, and this song is playing on a loop throughout.
It's
Oh
got
my God.
14 billion views on YouTube.
That's what I'm talking
That's
about.
crazy.
It never ends.
Never
It you know,
It's up there with Shakira.
Shakira ain't got nothing on Baby Shark.
That's what I'm saying.
it's just it's bad, bringing me bad vibes. I come here to get away from
the
Baby Shark. Ben on the text line said, Nick, I double dog dare you to come back from the break with Baby Shark. So
There we go.
Ben,
you
you
go.
got your wish.
Conspiring behind
Yes.
our backs.
It's not his favorite. It's not my son's favorite, but like most kids, he hears it. You know, there are multiple versions of it. There are remixes galore. So if I've heard it once, I've heard it many times. But Ben, this is a throwback to an old segment from this show, but you just made the list by Ben.
by requesting
Yes.
that.
Ben now says he needs to send us all cookies. Well, if you're sending us cookies, then it's fine to play Baby Shark. That's all I'm going to say. Then we have an unnamed texter who says, whosever idea it was to play that song should suffer for eternity. No cookies for you, unnamed texter. But there is another text I found to be interesting here as we wrap up our discussion on the Yaroslava Skarov trade with the San Jose Sharks the Predators made late last week. Randy on the text line says, well, this is the different text, but I'll read it anyway. Randy says, my only issue with what the Predators received in this trade, you keep saying it'll be 5 years before we know about them. It just keeps reminding me that they'll be 70 before we know it. So I'm sorry to remind you about how old you are. But this is the text that I wanted to get to from Brian. He says, curious to see how teams will go at Askarov. He reminds me a bit of a young Ron Hextall. Great goalie, but if you screw with him and get his temper going, it will get him off of his game. So that's what I wanted to discuss.
This is what I and my colleagues in the Predator circles have discussed for a long time since Askarov has come into the mix, and we've learned about his charisma, right? Because it is very unconventional. The brand, and I think I am told he is all about the brand. It's not just, hey, this is how I am. Because I do think it's authentic, right? What makes him is the swagger, right? It's his greatest strength and maybe a weakness as well. Only time will tell. But how will that play? The bench pressing of the goal, the slamming the goal down, the undisciplined plays sometimes, the risky plays that he has the talent to make. How will that play at the next level? Will he have to tone it down, or will it be an asset for him? Because there are a lot of people, and I think you guys would agree, there are a lot of fans that desperately want somebody like that to succeed because it shakes things up. It's fun. It's different, right? From a fan standpoint. But there is that old guard, and this is probably in every sport, there's this battle that goes on, but especially in hockey. I'd say hockey, as much as any sport, is trying to suppress players that have that gene in them. Is that fair to say? And I wonder how that has been viewed for a long time within the organization. Because I would say this, I'm totally okay if a guy wants to act like he acts, right? If you can back it up and you want to be like that and that is natural for you, I'm okay with that if your work ethic and your quality as a teammate and your attitude behind the scenes is good. What I don't like is if he does that and he's a bad teammate, and that I think is what really how he handled himself during the playoffs last year. I do think that was an issue, right? When he got benched, I think a lot of that was when you act the way he did and do all the charisma stuff, that's when people are like, oh man, what is this guy? What is his substance really deep down?
It's if you aren't playing to the caliber of your antics, then that's when people have a problem. Like if you're doing a scarf, all the stuff that he's doing, and listen, you want a player to be able to show his personality. We've heard Brian Callahan talk about it, guys having an attitude, because he talked about Mason Kinsey and his own personality. You want a guy to be able to do that, because when a guy is able to do that, the true player comes out. He can play within a comfort. But in doing that, you better be able to play big, because if you're not playing big, that stuff gets very old very quickly.
And do your teammates have your back?
Exactly, absolutely.
Because you could be put in a position in a game where a guy starts doing that.
Yeah.
The other team challenges him, and then what do your teammates do? They back
Exactly.
you up, and they're like, "Oh man, here he goes again.
Mhm.
He's ticked off the other team here, or he just took a bad penalty." So I think that's the essential question: is
Didn't he?
do his teammates have his back and really believe in him and say, "Okay, we'll go with you"?
Didn't he take a penalty in a game before a Scaroff?
Oh, yeah.
At goalie.
He took a huge penalty in the playoffs.
That's what I was
in the
thinking,
game that he
yeah.
eventually got benched in and lost the
I'm
job
like,
for a
how
while.
do you get a penalty as a
He
goalie?
tackled a guy.
It's
He
like-
tackled a guy. He clotheslined him and threw him down. It's on.
What was the
video.
official call? Was it cross-checking?
I don't know what they called it.
How many cross-checking penalties have goalies taken?
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Like,
he
what
lost
are you
his cool.
doing?
He lost his cool and he snapped.
I think the kid's gonna be. I think he's gonna be awesome.
I think
he's gonna
he should
have
grow
his,
out of a
yeah.
lot of this stuff.
Maybe he's gonna have his growing pains because of his sort of bravado and sort of look at me attitude. But I think the kid's gonna be great. I think Barry did what was well. I think the kid's gonna be pretty good. But I think Barry did what was best for the organization, and that was to move him on. You don't want a malcontent sitting in the locker room with the team that you're putting together to ultimately try to win a Stanley Cup. This team doesn't have the big time, flat out scores that some other teams may have that can probably overcome a lot of noise. They play as a team. They got some really damn good players, but they play as a team. And when you're playing as a team, you don't need a link in that chain that's not pulling their weight or that's causing some type of confusion within a locker room. They can't afford it. Barry don't like it. So what do? You move on from the individual. You wish him well, but your main priority is to do what's best for the Nashville Predators, and I believe that's what Barry did.
To Willie's point about Askarov and his personality and how it will play in the dressing room, it'll be interesting to see if he does stick with the Sharks, what a lot of losing will do, because they're probably going to lose a lot as a team. He didn't do a lot of losing. The Milwaukee Admirals haven't done a lot of losing these past few years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Well, so, I mean, that, as Derek knows full well, losing a lot can really
Change an individual.
It can change someone. It could exacerbate certain issues.
That's a good point, because that stuff doesn't play well as well. Like, we all know the guy that scores the touchdown in the fourth quarter and does the big dance. You're like, dude, you're down
Right.
35-7.
What are you doing?
What are you doing? That's where you get into that. So because I don't think Askarov is going to change, right? With that part of it, right? He should grow out of a lot of these things, and hopefully he'll have a better scope for when to do it and when not. But that's a great question to bring it up, Adam, is if you're playing for a team, and they're rebuilding, right? It's going to take a few years for them. In a few years, they've got a lot of pieces, high first-round picks that they hope will all mature, and they'll start to win. We found out the last 4 or 5 years that it's not easy to do the full breakdown. It takes a lot more time than I think people want to believe to do a full rebuild in exchange for getting the high first-round picks, which is what the Sharks have done. But it's going to be a while before they're a really good team.
They lost 63 games last season.
They're arguably the worst team in the salary cap era. Fair?
Yes, I would include that Avalanche team from, what year was that? It was like right when Jared Bednar first got to Colorado. That was a really bad team before they got to where they are.
Unfortunately, the Nathan McKinnons and Cale McCarthy, the guys that they got, sped up their process. They rebuilt faster than some, but they hit rock bottom.
Even though Askarov is gone, Predators fans will be keeping an eye on it, because they want to see. I mean, they learned to love him while he was a member of the organization. Perhaps that's no longer the case, but we're going to be monitoring what he does, because we want to see if the Predators made the right choice. But as you said, Willie, it's probably going to be at least a few years before we can really definitively say which of the teams won the trade. 615-737-1025. We'll get back into the NFL and the Titans coming up next. We're continuing to monitor the waiver wire here as teams make cuts ahead of the 3 p.m. Central deadline. Nothing to report on the Titans as of yet, other than the news that we got at the start of the show. Caleb Farley cut by the Tennessee Titans reportedly. We'll continue to look for that as well. 615-737-1025. Adam Vingan, Derek Mason, Willie Donick, 1025-1063 The Game. Willie and D. Mace, ESPN 1025, 1063 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Adam Vingan, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Nick Frazier with you here on Tuesday afternoon. We are roughly 2 hours away from the deadline for NFL teams to submit their 53-man rosters. Will continue to.
I'm actually surprised we haven't heard more little tidbits.
I
right?
know. So far, we've only seen one
Aren't you,
cut
D-Mace?
as it relates to the Titans.
We haven't heard much of anything. That's
Usually there's 4 or 5 names that start floating around for each particular team,
Right.
at least for the Titans.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen anything but Farley.
Caleb Farley is the only
Yeah, you're
one
right,
we've
other
seen
than
so
the
far.
trade.
So we shall keep an eye on that.
And if I had reported this morning
Hmm.
with no knowledge at all, and I just went on Twitter and said, Titans are cutting Caleb Farley, I would have liked my chances of being right.
Yeah.
Even if I wasn't
would've
actually
too.
reporting it with a source, like I could have guessed. Like, I don't think anybody was really betting hard that Farley would make the team at this point in his career. And I do hope he finds fulfillment and joy in his life. I wonder, honestly, if he'll keep playing, right? Or does he want to be on the practice squad? I don't know. Like, what's next for him? Just try to play somewhere else, start fresh somewhere where he doesn't have the label that he has here of first-round pick that's a disappointment. I do wonder about that.
We'll
'Cause
see.
his body just doesn't hold up. That's the biggest issue that he's had.
If you're not available, then the likelihood of you latching on to another team is slim unless your talent is just that, your talent is just that high, or the potential is that high that they just can't pass it up. So
I do have one Titans cut to pass along that I missed from our friend Teron Davenport. The Titans are releasing safety Matthew Jackson.
oh wow.
Matthew-
Seriously?
Now, he
Oh,
was,
Matthew?
now that's significant because I think TD was one that thought he had a shot when we talked to him yesterday on the show.
But that room was so full.
Yeah.
Them
With the
bringing
signings that they
the
made.
2 signings that they made and the guys that were already there, there was probably only room for maybe 1 if they were going to keep 5. But
So
I would
add,
say he's a practice squad candidate for
yes,
sure.
add that to the list. Matthew Jackson cut by the Titans, according to Teron Davenport, as well as Caleb Farley earlier today. So we had Tim Hasselbeck on earlier, and Willie, you asked him about Mike Sandow's quarterback tiers, which is a story that Mike Sandow at The Athletic does every year. It's great sports talk fodder. Let's just put it right out there. This is the perfect thing for what we do. Let's argue about quarterbacks. It's like what's the word I'm looking for? What was ambrosia? Like for the gods? Like we lap this stuff up.
Ambrosia is a great yacht rock band, by the way.
Oh, is
They've
it?
got some great light rock hits from the early 80s.
Do I look
late
like I
70s?
listen to
You
yacht rock?
should. You should.
what in the hell is yacht rock? Is
Yacht
it-
rock, you know that? Michael McDonald.
music you play on a yacht? If that's the case, I haven't been
Kinda.
on many yachts.
I haven't ever
Yes.
been on a yacht. Actually, I've sightseed on a yacht, I guess, but it is a light rock from the late 70s, kind of a genre. In fact, the satellite channel will actually, for the summer, have a channel.
They do
of
have a
this
yacht
type.
rock channel.
Yeah.
So it's contemporary country.
If you know,
but for
you
rock
know.
people.
If you know,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
Ambrosia had some hits that fall right into line with Michael McDonald and Christopher Cross and some guys like that. You know the songs; they're classic. But not to get off track. But
Yes.
Mike Sandow was on with Robbie and Rexroad.
He
this morning.
was on with Robbie and Rexroad this morning. Joe Rexroad using his many connections to get Mike Sandow on the air. So Will Levis was in tier 4 in Mike Sandow. This was his debut appearance in the quarterback tiers for Will Levis. He was in tier 4, which is described as, quote, a tier 4 quarterback could be an unproven player, not enough information for voters to classify, or a veteran who ideally would not start all 17 games. The former description certainly applies to Will Levis. So here are some of his contemporaries in tier 4. Daniel Jones, Justin Fields, Gardner Minshew, Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, Sam Darnold, and Jacoby Brissett. So those are the quarterbacks in the same tier. Now, according to this breakdown, of the 50 voters, I believe there were 50, 40 of the 50 put Levis in tier 4, 10 of the 50 put Levis in tier 3.
And by the way, it should be noted, if you haven't read the article, there is no tier 5. It
No.
only goes to 4. 4 is as low as it goes.
So
Nowhere to go but up.
right. We were talking about this the other day with second best or second worst or seventh best. Well, seventh best is great if there are 20 choices. If you're seventh best out of 8, that's bad. So if you're in tier 4 and there's only 4 tiers, well, Will Levis is an unproven commodity. But Mike Sandow was on with Robbie and Rexford this morning and talked about his feedback from his sources on what they saw from Will Levis.
I want to start with Will Levis because obviously there's a 9-game sample size we've got from him, and the idea and kind of the thought process on him really varies on who you speak to. So what did you kind of learn and piece together about Will Levis as you were putting this list together this season?
Well, people know he can throw the ball. He's got a good arm, and then they wonder a little bit about just his demeanor a little bit. Is he play a little uptight? Is he a little uptight? That was part of it for him. But it's only 9 games, so he came in with a little bit of a less of a pedigree than some of the other guys who were, first round picks, top 5. So there's probably a little bit of a reason for that. And now we'll just see how he takes to new coaching. I don't think people were, racing to the window to bet on him, but it wasn't like there was, super negative commentary either on him. There's not a lot of people who are thinking the ceiling's super sky high and he's going to be amazing, but that's for him to prove.
So that was Mike Sandow on Robbie and Rexford talking about what he gathered in his reporting for his quarterback tiers on Will Levis. But Willie, there was a quote because Sandow talks to coaches, executives around the league. He grants them anonymity. But there was a quote in the blurb about Levis that caught your eye that you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, if you read the article, this is what to me is the key. And as he's talking there, it furthers my, I think, assessment of this, because there's a little bit of a tone of a wait and see. We're so early in Levis's career. I think where he is on this list next year is going to be very important because he's a little bit of an unknown. But this is the other part of it, D-Mace. It's hard to judge him on last year because their line was so bad. A defensive coordinator said, now this is a defensive coordinator in the NFL. I don't know which one. It's unnamed. Quote, I'll give him a 4, but if I'm being honest, I think next year is maybe a 3, and that's it. I don't see the upside. Now, to me, that's the dilemma for the Titans, right? If he ends up being a 3, and that's it, what does that mean for the team? Now, tier 3 in this group includes players like Kyler Murray. Trevor Lawrence right now is in tier 3. Tua is in tier 3. Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield. If that's the ceiling for Will Levis, what is your immediate reaction to that? And do you believe that is his ceiling, or do you think there's maybe still a chance for it? I'm still hoping for a 2, right? I'm not sitting here saying he's going to be a 1, but if he could be a 2, that would be huge.
Yeah, if he can get to a 2, I mean, right now he's at a 3. If he can get to a 3 by the end of the season, you're looking at, based upon the tier structure, you're looking at guys like Tua Tagovailoa, Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield, Carr, and Geno Smith, and Wilson. So if he can have a sort of season like that, or his career can be trending upward in that 3, then potentially 2, I think that's a good space to be. But that's if you're surrounding him with individuals that can help uplift him. Because tier 3 is basically saying, well, tier 4 is basically saying you need a lot of help. Tier 3 says you don't need as much help. Tier 2 and then tier 1 is like, okay, you can do it by yourself.
You can elevate
everyone else. If you can get to that tier 3, tier 2, then you have yourself something, I believe, special in regards to, if we just get the right guys around this individual, sort of like Brock Purdy, even though they put Brock Purdy, I think, in tier 2, even like Brock Purdy, you put people around him, a system that he fits, this guy can flourish. He can do the things that you're asking him to do. But if you don't, then he's nothing more than a tier 4 guy. He can't elevate people around him, but with good players, they all can elevate one another. To me, if he can finish in that 3, possibly edge of 2 by the end of the year, that'd be good going to next year. I think you can win a lot of games with a guy that is on those tiers.
This is another thing that jumped out at me in the quotes, Adam, and this is an offensive coordinator. He makes some impressive throws. I always wonder if he sees it and can react fast enough. And D-Mace, I want to get your take on this too, because I hear you say this about the Titans offense. And of course, with Levis at the helm, this is a big part of it. Can you play quick? Can you play fast? That's what you're looking for with this offense. Adam, when you were with us last week, we talked about the numbers of Levis holding the ball more last year. He's willing to sort of hang in the pocket, which is good, but you're susceptible to sacks. And are you seeing down the field? So this is the offensive coordinator. He makes impressive throws. I always wonder if he sees it and can react fast enough. Is his processing ability going to always be a little slow? That's all, just some awareness. I don't know if he knows when he's hot and there are blitzers, that sort of thing. So does that jive with you, Derek? Are you worried about that part of his game? Because we can all see the arm. Like when he unleashes one and throws it down the field, you're like, dang, not everybody can do that. We can see the toughness and the strength. We listen to him. He seems to have the right attitude and makeup. But the processing is the thing that you can probably see better than
that's why I talked a lot about this weekend.
The
operations of the offense. I didn't care if he threw for 200 yards, 5 million yards, 8 touchdowns. It didn't matter to me in a preseason game. I wanted to see what it looked like, him operating with some of the guys. At least he was operating with 98% of the guys he's going to be out there with the exception of Wiley wasn't out there, I don't believe. And then D-Hop obviously wasn't out there. So, but everybody else is going to be the guys that are going to be counted on during the year. So to me, his operations was well. The way he managed the offense was well. He looked as if he knew exactly what he was doing within that offense. So to me, I'm good with that. I think he will take another step as long as he continues to do the things that they're asking him to do. Don't get bored with the boring things. You may have to throw a check down 3 times in a row, but don't get bored with that, because if we're picking up yardage, that's all that matters. If we're picking up 2, 3, 4 yardage, now it's 2nd and 6. Now we can, if we want to dump another screenplay that's boring, we can do it, or another check down that we can do it. But you kept us in 2nd and manageable, 3rd and manageable. Now the playbook is expansive rather than cut down when it's 3rd and 20. You can't call too many plays when it's that much yardage to get. So to me, the operations went well with Will Levis, which tells me he's learning, he's regurgitating, and he's able to go out there and run this offense the way that Brian Callahan wants him to run it.
The most interesting aspect of this list from Mike Sando, his quarterback tiers, his annual exercise, involves at least to me, this was the most interesting aspect, involves a quarterback in the Titans division, Trevor Lawrence, who fell from the 2nd tier to the 3rd tier. And now this is something Sando wrote at the top of the Trevor Lawrence blurb. Lawrence fell 7 spots, the biggest drop for any player from 2023. The gap between his salary ranking, tied for 1st, and his tiers ranking, 15th, is the largest in that direction for any player in tiers history. So that's how quickly things can change. Trevor Lawrence, coming off of a good season 2 years ago, was rated highly by executives, coaches around the league in this exercise last year. This year, Trevor Lawrence had 32 votes in tier 3 and 18 in tier 2. Last year, he had 33 votes in tier 2 and even had 3 tier 1 votes. So a lot can change in a year.
Right. And I think we should keep in mind that, let's say you got a 3-year span. I think you could be, for a season, you could be tier 4. Then the next year you have a really good year and you could jump up to tier 2. And then the following year you could have somewhere in between and end up in tier 3. So you're not forever entrenched in these tiers, which surprised me a little bit, D-Mace,
Mhm.
that Josh Allen was one of only 3 quarterbacks that were voted. Remember, this isn't Mike Sando's opinion. This is his consensus of all the NFL people he talked to, that around the league, Josh Allen still graded as a tier 1. I know that's you were the first person I thought of when I read that. I was like, oh boy, wait till D-Mace sees this.
Listen, Josh Allen. People forget that for a couple of years, 2-3 years there, Buffalo were in a situation like, what in the hell are we gonna do? Because they didn't know if Josh Allen was the guy or not. He didn't look like a starting quarterback. No way, no how. He had his troubles. It wasn't until they went out and got Stephon Diggs and they drafted Gage that his numbers started to pick up. It gave him confidence. He went out there and he started balling. I want to see what happens now that he doesn't have those weapons anymore. Can he now? Because tier 1 is what? You elevate your team. Patrick Mahomes does it. That's the only guy that I believe is in tier 1. Patrick Mahomes. He's the only guy that has proven that I don't have to have anything.
So you wouldn't even put Burrow in tier 1.
No, just give me some warm bodies. Give me some warm bodies. That's all I need. And I will, because he's proven it.
Right. I just think he's on a tier of his own.
He's on a tier. That's why people try to sneak, and they don't even have Joe Burrow. Do they have Joe Burrow in tier 1?
Yes, they do. It's
okay,
the 3 of them. Mahomes, Allen, and Burrow.
My thing is that Josh Allen, for as good as he is, he's like Brett Favre. There's a reason why when this GM said you're scared to play him. No, I ain't scared to play him because I know eventually he's going to throw me an interception. He's going to throw me a turn. He has the second most turnovers since he's been a starter of any quarterback other than Trevor Lawrence. The second most interceptions of any quarterback other than Trevor Lawrence. He has 59. Trevor Lawrence has 60. That isn't an elite quarterback. It's not. Look at Patrick Mahomes. Look at Joe Burrow. If you want to put them in the category, if you want to put Joe Burrow in the category of Patrick Mahomes, look at everything that he's done. He's been injured, I understand, but he's not turning the ball over as much as Josh Allen. There's only one person that is in tier 2 automatically for me, and that's Patrick Mahomes. Nobody else can elevate their team, or nobody else has shown that they can elevate their team consistently like Patrick Mahomes.
Uh-oh.
We have
motions. Nick is frantically motioning.
We have breaking Titans news.
Oh, boy.
From Adam Schefter. We made sure we had the breaking news sound ready to go this time. The Rams are sending linebacker Ernest Jones to the Tennessee Titans. So according to Adam Schefter, Ernest Jones is now a member of the Tennessee Titans, traded from the Rams to the Titans. So according to Adam Schefter, Ernest Jones, linebacker from the Rams to the Titans, the 24-year-old has totaled 320 tackles, 5.5 sacks, and 3 interceptions in his 3-year career. A 2021 third-round pick. He was part of the Rams' Super Bowl winning team in his rookie season. He had 145 tackles and 4.5 sacks last year, both career highs. So according to Adam Schefter, the Tennessee Titans have acquired Rams linebacker Ernest Jones. I don't know what the return is yet on the trade, but Ernest Jones now a member of the Tennessee Titans.
Do y'all think that? I don't think this was, well, partially it could have been for the Chance Campbell, but they are not sold on Jack Gibbons. That's why you go out and make this move, because this guy's a player. He's a guy that fit well. Obviously, at one point in time with the Rams, he was part of their Super Bowl winning team. He played a lot within the last 3 years. This is a move, not necessarily for Chance. For Campbell, but it's a move to me that they're not sold on Jack Gibbons being their inside backer as a starter. That's what this has nothing to do with. I don't think this has as much to do with Campbell than it is Jack Gibbons. To me,
agree with that.
I want to see what the price is here that they have to give up. We did ask Tehran about specifically Ernest Jones, because this has been out there that he has been dangled. They went public the last few days that Ernest Jones is out there. If you want him, you can go get him. The Rams are also not a team that's in a rebuild, right? They feel like they made the playoffs last year, right? Am I wrong? They snuck in there,
Yes.
kind of unexpectedly
Mhm.
last year. They have rebounded from trading all their draft picks. They have sort of gone against the trend of paying a big price for loading up to win a Super Bowl the way they did. So it intrigues me that he's out there. He's on a 1-year deal this year for $3.1 million. So that's why I am wondering if the Titans are willing to part with the draft pick, which I would guess something like that has got to be in the works. So they must see Jones as a guy that is a good fit with Denard Wilson and maybe worth a second contract.
According to ESPN, this was as Willie mentioned, the Rams have allowed Ernest Jones to seek a trade before a trade was consummated with the Titans. But this is from an article from earlier. A trade would overhaul the Rams' defensive setup as Jones serves as the defensive play caller. General Manager Les Snead has referred to Jones as the, quote, leader of the defense. And then Rams defensive coordinator Raheem Morris called it Jones's defense near the end of the 2023 season.
I'm sure it won't take long to find out what the compensation is for the Rams, but the Titans must really think he could be a piece, not just for this year, but down the road. And also, D. Mace, I think they feel like they got a pretty decent team, and they might be in the mindset of they could surprise some people to make a move like this. Because I don't think this is a team that should be trading draft picks half-heartedly, right? They must really like this guy.
Yeah, that's why I said, to me, it wasn't because they gave up a significant pick to get him.
I'm assuming it will be.
yes.
Maybe it's a conditional. I'm still waiting for
Maybe they
who's
took
going to
that
uncover
seventh
that.
round pick, packaged it with something else, and then sent it to the LA Rams in return for the linebacker.
Maybe there's a swap of picks.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I would love to see what the Titans get back, what they had to give up in order to get the linebacker. As far as what was it, a 4th, 5th, a 6th round pick, was a conditional pick. But again, I just think this was to upgrade their defense because they're not sure at the inside linebacker position. I think they like Kenneth Murray. They like what they saw in preseason. Jack Gibbons didn't stand out in preseason. He wasn't bad, but he didn't stand out either. They want an impact player at that inside linebacker position. You know why they want an impact player? Look who the defensive coordinator is. Who did the defensive coordinator have in Baltimore? He had 2 stud-ass linebackers in Baltimore in the inside. That's what he's trying to replicate here in Tennessee. Yeah. And Jack Gibbons doesn't fit that mold, I think.
Yeah, I think he's got a higher ceiling, and he's going to become more expensive after this year if they want to keep him, especially if he's a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
So they might feel like it was worth the price of whatever draft pick.
So the Titans, according to Adam Schefter and others, have traded for Rams linebacker Ernest Jones. We have yet to see what the trade compensation is, but we will get that to you as soon as we know. When we come back, Vanderbilt head football coach Clark Lee will join us as the Commodores prepare for their season opener against the Virginia Tech Hokies. Adam Vingan, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Willie and D Mace, 1025, 1063. The Game, Adam Bingen, Willie Donick, Derek Mason here with you. We will soon be joined by Vanderbilt head football coach Clark Lee to discuss the Commodores season opener this weekend at home against Virginia Tech. Kickoff at 11 a.m. I think Clark just finished practice, so he should be in dressing reporters down on West End. So we should be hearing from him soon. But the big news before the break was that the Tennessee Titans, according to Adam Schefter and others, have traded for Rams linebacker Ernest Jones. Now, surprisingly, we have not seen what the trade return is for Ernest Jones. That'll be really interesting. I mean, if you guys had to take a wild guess as to what the Titans will be giving up for Ernest Jones, what do you think it'll be?
I'm going to say it's going to be significant for him, just because of what Jones has done. Like he's a fairly known commodity. It's not like the Rams were going to cut him, and I think the Titans probably view him, like I said in the last segment, as a guy that isn't just a one-year guy. I think he's a guy that they're looking to be a fit for Denard Wilson and a guy that would play after this year. So you would have to be willing to invest a second contract in him. He's on the last year of his deal for $3.1 million, according to what I just looked up. So I'm going to say that's going to be more of a mid-round pick. Maybe it's a conditional based on how well Jones does, or maybe whether he signs the next contract with the Titans. I don't know if you can do that, but that might be some of the things I would think about.
This guy has improved each year he's been in the National Football League. He played 15 games last year and started off 15. I'm not sure what he missed 2 for injury. I don't know. But each and every year he has gotten better within whatever scheme. Obviously in that Rams defense, he played under Raheem Moore, and he's a damn good defensive coordinator. Now the head coach with the Atlanta Falcons. He fits what it seems. He fits exactly what Denard Wilson wants to do and who he wants at the linebacker's spot. He wants guys that are physical, aggressive, smart, that are always in attack mode. He believes, or the Titans believe, that they have that with Ernest Jones here. A young player, seems like he has a hell of an upside. I'm with you. I wonder what they had to give up in order to get him. Was it a 3rd round, 4th round pick? I can't see it being a 6th or 7th round pick for this guy.
If it's higher than a 4th, I would be a little concerned. That's a pretty big asset to give up. And I'm trying to remember, I don't think they don't have a 3rd next year, right? Because of Snead, right? They don't have their 3rd, so they can't be a 3rd. So maybe there's a swap of picks involved. And the other question that always should be asked is, why do the Rams not want Jones? Because a lot of people say, hey, good player. He's not getting paid a huge amount of money. Why do the Rams not like him? They clearly didn't see him down the road as part of their plans. Are they in a cap crunch? I'm not sure of the circumstances there. I would love to get some LA perspective on Jones.
So according to the Los Angeles Times, Ernest Jones did not ask for a trade. It was not, they gave him permission, his representatives permission, to explore a trade and a new contract with other teams, but Jones did not request a trade. Sean McVay said that. We've had communication with his representation. There's been some dialogue with teams, and that's kind of where it's at.
Are the Titans willing? Maybe this is behind the scenes. The Titans were willing to sign him to a new deal, and the Rams were not.
There's a possibility.
Sometimes that's the issue.
Yeah.
You want a second deal. You want certainty of that, and maybe if you're not getting that, it's kind of a mini version of a hold-in. I don't know. That could be being downplayed by the Rams. I'm not sure, but we'll see what the compensation is.
Either way, let's just talk about for a second.
But that's a huge depth piece.
Yes.
If nothing, the depth was very, very thin at that position.
Think about just the complete overhaul on the defensive side of the ball that
Huge.
the Titans have had this offseason. New defensive coordinator in Denard Wilson, Snead, Awuzie, Jones now, Diggs, Adams, Murray. You draft Tavondre Sweat. It's
Who's back? Like McCreary. Okay, other than McCreary, who is back? And Jeffrey Simmons. Who is
Molden.
Molden is kind of, and Hooker but
Yeah.
they were out
Okay.
so often. And those guys, they have more safeties now to add to that mix, the two guys from Seattle. So it is a big overhaul of the defense.
Yeah.
The defense wasn't awful last year.
But how many teams do you think I would have to go through every team, but
Like Arden Key is still there, but I would say it's
you lost Autry.
Yeah.
You lost Aziz Al-Shair.
Yeah, they have completely overhauled the defense.
It's a significant change. We're still waiting to see what the Titans have given up rather to acquire Ernest Jones. We have not seen that yet.
Because this is a guy that I think you just said, well, they're going to have to re-sign him. You and Adams, they're going to have to re-sign him. You don't trade for a guy like this and then not want to sign him to a longer term contract. I don't know what that as far as years, the length of the contract, but you think he's going into the last year or two of his contract.
Yeah, he's in the last year of his contract.
Wouldn't you want to, if you're going to make the trade for him, depending on what you gave up, aren't you looking to re-sign him to a deal at least for the next 2 to 3 years?
We've been saying that a big goal besides the results this year is, are you building a bigger foundation of players that are going to be with you for the next 2, 3, 4 years as you phase into the new stadium? That's an essential part of the health of the franchise. So I'm guessing they see him as a guy that could fit there. Who is it? Coy in Clarksville on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. I'll take his word for it because hopefully he's doing the research for us. 30 pressures last year, led the league in pressures for an inside linebacker. So that fits Denard Wilson and the scheme, right? They want to be aggressive. They want to bring pressure from all places, but you don't know where it's coming from. Each time I think of Don Capers way back when with the Steelers, how he used to do that with their zones.
Jacksonville too, wasn't he? I think so.
Yeah, and for years with the Steelers, right? Yeah. And then head coach for the Jags at one point. But that's the idea with this defense, which is different. I would characterize the Shane Bowen defense a little bit more of a bend, don't break. I think there's going to be more aggressiveness. They want to create turnovers. That's how you can be a team that's mediocre and be better if you win the turnover battle. And this team had 5 or 6 interceptions as a group. They were very, very low in sacks. That number's got to change this year. And guys like this hopefully are a fit.
Yeah, well, we're waiting to see. I'm a bit surprised we haven't seen the return yet, but we will find out. 615-737-1025. We'll continue this on the other side. Adam Vingen, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie and D Mace, 1025, 1063. The Game. Adam Binkin, Willie Donick, Derek Mason. According to Paul Kaharski on his Twitter account, Paul is hearing it's a 6th and Ernest Jones for a 5th. According to Paul Kaharski,
Okay.
a sixth and Ernest Jones for a 5th.
So you give up the 5th, you get an extra 6th,
And
you
the
get Jones.
player. Yes.
Okay.
I'd say that was a good trade.
I'll
Yeah.
we haven't seen Jones play, but
Yeah.
if you really believe, and this is what they've been selling on Murray,
Mhm.
that despite Murray's, I guess somewhat lackluster career with the Chargers, they feel like as a first rounder, his skill set fits the Denard Wilson aggressive scheme better, and Jones would be the same. So, okay, I'm glad to hear it's not anything higher than that. That's not that bad. That's not a huge. So again, I come back to the same thing. Why? What are the Rams not seeing with Jones? Why
The
why
Rams
is
probably
he
didn't want to.
expendable?
They probably didn't want to pay him. They probably knew they couldn't pay him. At least probably the money he wanted. This is a team that's still rebuilding from the last sort of salary cap sort of conundrum they were in when they went in for it and they end up winning the Super Bowl. They got exactly what they wanted, but they knew eventually that they were going to have to start making cuts and potentially losing guys that otherwise they probably more than likely would have kept. And Ernest Jones is probably one of those guys.
Here's a story from the Associated Press about the Ernest Jones situation when he was with Los Angeles. Quote, the Rams have placed little value on the inside linebacker positions since the franchise returned to Los Angeles, frequently suiting up fringe players with cost-effective salaries at the spot, with the exception of their brief dalliance with Bobby Wagner, who played just one season of a 5-year, $50 million deal in 2022 before the Rams dropped him.
Dalliance is that's a good vocab. I
Solid
feel like,
word.
Adam, our vocab, you being with your writing background, I feel like the vocabulary of our show is better when Adam's with us.
Why pay for an SAT tutor, everybody? If you have kids in high school, don't pay for that tutor. Just listen to this show. I like using SAT words.
But that is a philosophy that I think most teams have right now, and that is the inside linebacker position is seen as one that has a lot of turnover and one that you're not going to put your resources in, which again, the Titans have a little bit more money because their quarterback is making less than 1% of their salary cap, right? So that's not the case with the Rams, who have Matthew Stafford. They've got to pinch pennies in there, and that's a position that you can usually find serviceable guys, but this is the advantage you have when you have a young quarterback. You can have a little more budget for Murray and Jones, and hopefully you see the results if it's a match for your scheme.
From
right?
Ian Rappaport, just to confirm, Paul Kaharski, the Titans receive Ernest Jones and a 2026 6th rounder. The Rams receive a 2026 5th rounder.
So these draft picks don't even happen until 2026.
Yeah, so you're talking 2 years from now. So
that's the trade, according to Paul Kaharski and Ian Rappaport. Ernest Jones and a 2026 6th rounder from the Rams to the Titans for a 2026 5th rounder.
And it seems, based upon the article, they don't value the position the way that other teams do, so they don't want to have to pay the money that they probably would have had to pay Ernest Jones at that position. So what do? You send him on his way and try to recoup a draft pick for him. Now, what pick was he in a draft? Did it say?
That I will have to look up.
Yeah, let me see. I think I had it.
I believe he's a 3rd round pick.
A 3rd round pick. So essentially, I mean, I think it was a win-win for both teams.
Yes, a 3rd round pick in 2021 out of South Carolina.
I think it's a win-win for both teams. At least for me. You're getting a player that you can hopefully automatically plug into your defense. And the Rams get a 5th round pick back from him.
Here's another tidbit that I am I'm always noting. D-Mace knows that I bring this up a lot. He's another guy that is in his 3rd year, actually in his 4th year, right? This is his 4th year, and he's only still 24 years of age. So he's about to turn 25, but he's young for his Basically, what we see in college is guys generally are coming out of the draft a little older. He's still at an age where maybe you still hope that there's room for improvement.
Yeah.
Worth noting.
He's young enough, like you said, he's
Yeah.
young enough. So, and he's gotten better every year, at least statistically. He's gotten better. When he's gotten the opportunity to play and play extensively, he's done better.
He had 6 quarterback hits, 14 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks last year, 6 passes defended. So, the teams, this is another thing I think about with the, and we haven't seen it in a real game yet, and we're all curious what it looks like when you have Sweat and Simmons playing together. You have said what that can do for the life of an inside linebacker. It gives them that freedom, right?
Yeah, it gives them that freedom. Or I've seen it for many years. I had to play against it in Baltimore when they put those two, behemoths in the middle and allow Ray Lewis to roam and hit those A and B gaps unobstructed. That means a lot for those linebackers. Now they can truly be who they are meant to be at that position. And I see it the same way here. I don't think Jack Gibbons, again, I think he doesn't fit possibly the mentality they want at that inside backer. They prioritize the inside linebacker position here with Denard Wilson. That's why they are making the changes that they're making in regards to going to get Kenneth Murray Jr. from the Rams, and now going to get Ernest Jones. Well, Kenneth Murray Jr. from the Chargers, but now getting Ernest Jones from the Rams.
I have to say, I was not in the mindset yesterday of trade a pick, but it's not until 2026. I like the trade. Reading more and more about Jones, I think it's a worthy gamble, if you want to call it that.
One other thing to point out, which is
makes their team better today,
which is advantageous to the Titans, is that the waiver wire, according to Spot Track, the NFL waiver wire will follow the 2024 draft order until week 3 of the season. So until week 3 of the season, the Titans are 7th in waiver. What's the word I'm looking
batting
for?
order, basically.
Yeah. Waiver priority. There's the word I'm looking for. Behind the Panthers, Commanders, Patriots, Cardinals, Chargers, and Giants. So if players shake loose, the Titans are in a good position to fill out their roster as needed. But we're about an hour away from cut downs being finalized in the NFL. It's a 3 p.m. Central deadline. Jared will have all of the goings on coming up next on Stillman and Company. But so far, we've seen Caleb Farley reportedly released, Matthew Jackson reportedly released, TK McClendon is reportedly going on IR, the defensive end. So there are some moves that the Titans have been making. We'll break it all down tomorrow, but do you guys have a feeling that we might see a cut or an addition to the roster that may surprise us when we're back in these seats tomorrow?
Good question. Now that Malik Willis is traded, TK McClendon put on IR. Did we say that?
Yes.
Okay. There's less of this. Like this might give them a chance to hold the 4th tight end, right? Martin Robinson.
Are you saying are we expecting a trade or just a move?
Like, do you think that when the roster is finalized and we're talking about it tomorrow, will we have seen a cut, someone making the team, maybe another trade, something that we're not expecting?
I think we'll see a cut we're not expecting.
And who do you think that would be?
Let me see.
That's the question I have.
Yeah,
is there someone that
while we ponder, let's look at it. So a couple of quick reactions from the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One person who's unnamed just says "steal" in all caps.
Hey, could be. Is Kyle Phillips a guy?
This guy's a starter in the league for the last couple
seasons.
Years.
Yeah,
I mean,
is it a steal?
And
I don't
he's young.
know. We'll find out pretty soon.
Thing, if he were 30, then I would say, I don't know. You better be good this year. But I think you've got a long range here. And I think you hit the central question, Adam, in your quick research is what do you value the inside linebacker position? If you're willing and you have the budget, and for the next couple years, you have a bigger budget because Levis is cheap. This is where you can take advantage and pay more money for that position. The Bill Polian philosophy, and this was largely while Peyton Manning was in his prime and you were paying me money, he did not value that position. He was in that club that the Rams apparently have been in, that you can find the safety, you can find the guard, you can find the inside linebacker. and you pay the money for the other premium positions.
Well, here's one that we need to watch really. And I'm saying this only for this reason, because the incumbent is getting a little bit up there in age. Brayton, how you pronounce his last name? Naverson, the kicker, Narveson, the backup
Braden
kicker.
Narveson.
Don't be surprised if they keep him. Nick Folk isn't getting any younger. And place kickers and they are at a premium. You need
Practice
you a good
squad?
Yeah. He could be on practice, but then they run the risk of losing him on the practice squad. He could be a guy because Nick Folk isn't getting any younger. You're not keeping that. You may not keep that third quarterback, so you can't keep an extra kicker. He's proven that he can kick in his league.
I would put him on the practice squad without a doubt. The 53, I'd have to. Maybe I'm not as like I know he hit the 59-yarder, but
he had a 59, he had a 52, didn't
They'd
he?
have to view him as pretty special.
59 with room to spare.
Exactly, and he hit a 52 before that.
But he also almost remember the almost disaster. He made a hero out of the Odukoya, the tight end, because he missed short.
Oh yeah,
and the guy almost ran the whole
They knew
thing
that.
back.
They just gave him an opportunity. That was like that was almost a. What was that? A 50?
That was only 57, I think. 58.
Was it?
Yeah,
it
wasn't like
get
68.
a good boot on that.
He didn't.
That 59, he kicked with room to spare. That was like a 61-yarder that he kicked. That ended up being a 59.
I'm gonna say
just watch. I'm not saying that he's a guy that I would watch.
What about the running back? This is our last chance. Do we think Haskins, not Chestnut? Do we think Chestnut, not Haskins?
I'll go with Haskins
or
on
both.
this one.
I don't think they keep 4 running backs. I think it's Haskins too. I like Chestnut, but I think it's Haskins.
Yeah, I'm with you.
We'll have to wait and see.
Maybe they're only going to keep 51.
Who knows? They have the opportunity to carry 53. Rosters are due in an hour. Jared coming up next. So with Stillman and company, he'll have every major piece of news the Titans have leading into cut down day. Well, it is cut down day. Adam Vingan, Willie Dunnick, Derek Mason here with you. Stillman and company next. 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Be love on your people. Have a wonderful and blessed day. Peace.